were doing well in the
Good
beginning.
evening,
We should have just made it up.
it's March 14th, and it's almost 6:03, and the March 14th Board of Selectmen meeting is underway. Open the meeting, and then I'll ask April if she will open her meeting with the Budget Committee.
I will open my meeting with the Budget Committee. We have a quorum. We
Okay,
have one
And-
or two people online, on Zoom.
and I've got,
Okay.
and I've got Alan Daggett online. Alan, are you there? Alan, are you there? We have to verify. Because if he's voting,
Might be a mute, Alan.
One more time, Alan.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
The rest of them didn't work.
Could you hear me?
Michelle, can you count to 5 for me?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
We're good.
How about me? Am I?
You're good too. We hear you.
For 3, that's
Okay,
Okay, April, you can continue. Budget? Did you?
I did. I
You did. Oh,
opened
you
my
did.
meeting.
Although-
We have a quorum.
Okay,
Good.
so let's start the budget.
Wow.
Finally.
So before we get started tonight with the regular budget presentations, I just want to make sure people have updated paperwork with you. So everyone should have received a new orange sheet tonight.
Yep.
And that orange sheet is, I think, 40-A. So when I was talking to Mary Beth yesterday and we were reviewing the capital, I noticed that we were missing at least one capital account and we were missing 2. For some reason, the totals on page 41 are correct, but that sheet didn't print out. So that 40-A goes in right before the total page between 40 and 41.
48 goes before 41.
Before 41, after 40.
Yes, yeah, but the total's correct.
And then there was a question about the snapshot sheet from the police department. And so Yanina passed out a new one tonight for everyone. Some people had the updated one, some people had an old one. So everyone should have received that as well.
Yep.
So yours might match and it might be different, but the one we handed out tonight is the correct one. You can toss out the old one.
what are you gonna do about the people that are on?
We will email it to you. How about that?
Okay, thank you.
And I am going to email you something else. So,
I went back.
Rick and Michelle and Alan, I'm emailing you a document right now that I'm about to pass out. Alan, I think already had it, but. So, one other item I wanted to pass out was an updated tax commitment sheet. You already have one, right? Do you want to hand one out to these other people? Ma'am, so if anybody down that way does not have one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you much.
Thank you.
Where does this go?
So it should go under your commitment tab. And I would put it on top. You can see we date them.
There's no number on this one, though.
So once everybody has it in, I'm just gonna review that information with you. And Michelle and Rick, did you get that email?
Yeah, I just got it, Lori.
Okay.
Yep, I have it.
So after the last meeting, April had a conversation with me about the amount of overlay. So if you look on your commitment sheet in the first set of rows where we have the expenditures, you'll see overlay is the last line there. And overlay is, by state statute, a separate part of the tax commitment process. And state law gives the assessor the authority to commit up to an additional 5% of the tax commitment for overlay. And in the statutory language, it talks about unexpected expenses. It's also a way of covering abatement costs, and it's also a way of providing financial stability for cash flow purposes, as well as looking at the fund balance and how the budget grows. So we had a revaluation, and we had increased the overlay to cover that. Normally, when I do these commitment sheets, and you can go back, is we always keep the overlay the same amount as the previous year. So whatever that amount was, we just repeat it. And the reason for that is when you look at the changes on your commitment sheet for the budget, we're trying to show you what the true changes in the budget were and not mix the overlay into that equation. The thought process had been that the overlay would reduce this year because certainly the reval has settled in place, and we feel much more confident about the need for large abatements. And when that overlay decreases, it would, of course, decrease the tax rate. So for your purposes here, you are seeing that overlay decrease. And the overlay doesn't get set until the tax commitment process, so I'm not saying 200,000 is the magic number, but it is much more reduced than what it was. And so what that does is that changes the municipal portion of the tax rate. So when we calculate the municipal portion of the tax rate, which is, if we look at the bottom of the page and you see the mill rate, and we break it between municipal, education, and county, the entire overlay is part of the municipal portion of the tax rate. I know that Kennebunk, I read, kind of splits it between school and county or divides the overlay, but the overlay is really only for municipal purposes. It's not going to belong to the school or the county because we have a district. We always keep it in the municipal portion. So that reduction is being shown in that municipal portion of the tax rate, which would bring us down 4 cents in this scenario, or negative 1.72%.
Good.
So I don't know if that makes sense to anybody, what I just said.
Yeah.
I was trying to talk slower.
Lori, just a quick one. So where's the dollars again for the union contract negotiation?
It's in the contingency line.
Contingency. Okay, thank you.
Lori,
Mm-hmm.
one quick question. Just for my own edification, could you remind me what the K through 12 population of the town is again?
Oh, I think we have 16% of the student population, and we pay 42% of the bill.
You knew exactly where I was going. Just a reminder for everyone.
No.
All of us will start.
So if we talk about the school budget just for a second, I think at the next budget meeting, we might have an updated budget education number for you to review. We received today, so the school started meeting, their finance committee meeting on the budget on in their formula. So remember that their whole budget can have a certain percentage increase, but then that's impacted by how much funding they receive from the state for essential programs and services, and in turn, how it's funneled through the formula. Because the formula is for funding on the local level is very valuation-based. So Arundel pays a much different, even though we have similar census populations, they pay a much different percentage of the school budget. So they have sent us some numbers. The school budget and finance committee haven't reviewed those numbers yet, so I don't want to get ahead of them. But I think they're going to meet on Monday, and so by next Thursday, we should have a sense of maybe where they're headed and how that will impact Kennebunkport.
Going to be up or down from what you had?
Oh, David. It will be up. I could have told you that in November.
So Lori, when we look at the valuation numbers for the different towns that you gave us, in the formula, is that number in total that?
So
or
in
they-
our formula, they actually do a 3-year average,
Okay,
But it is that number.
but it is that number.
state valuation
So
number,
when
yeah.
we're looking at the magnitude of the differences between us and other towns, that plays through that formula?
Yes, it
magnitude
does.
difference.
Yep,
Okay,
yep.
that's big.
And it also affects those state funds. We're not eligible, so we get no relief from the state funds.
Well, we don't meet the minimum allocation. I mean, every year the state sets what the minimum tax rate allocation at 100% value has to be. And I don't know what it is this year, but it's usually in the $6.50, $7 range. And you can see by looking at our tax commitment sheet, we're about 100% value. We're at 354. So we're nowhere meeting that minimum allocation. So we'll have more school information next week, hopefully.
I appreciate you looking at the commitment and reducing that number because it did reduce the mill rate from an increase of 35 cents to now only an increase of 15 cents. So that's, yes,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's much better,
Yes.
much better, much better. And, you know, going into
Absolutely, yeah.
possibility of voting on a new town hall, that lower
And of
rate
course, we try to give you a conservative approach to the valuation. The valuation impacts that as that grows. I anticipate the valuation will be higher than what's in this commitment sheet, but it's just too early for me to commit at this point.
So the valuation being higher would,
Decrease the
Bring the
tax
rate
rate.
down.
As the valuation increases and the expenditures remain the same as they are now, the tax rate will decrease.
got it.
So when are we going to look at that final commitment number? When the selectmen do the actual tax commitment in July?
Well, the final commitment number will be when we do the tax commitment in July, yes. But I'll give you an updated one as we go through the process.
Okay, because I did a 15-year study on overlay, because when I saw it, it's like, when I was town clerk, and I was doing the warrant, I remember it being a lot lower than this.
Yeah.
Except for the years when there was a reval. And so I kind of did a little life study in the last 15 years of what the overlay was and how much we actually spent out of overlay. And the average, other than the 2 reval years, the 2010 year and this last one in 2022, the average overlay was $80,000. And the average amount that we spent out of that account was $9,000. So I think when we come to the final tax commitment, that's something that we should think of. Because, I mean, if we reduced this to $100,000 instead of $200,000, that would take another 3 cents off the mill rate.
Yep.
Because it's 35,000,
Yep.
about
Yeah.
$35,000
penny
a
is a
penny.
penny.
So
Yeah.
And that's like direct, right there. And that way, I mean, we reduced the mill rate 20 cents just by reducing that number just now, without cutting any operating budget, any capital budget. I mean, you know, everything that's in the budget that's being presented. So I think that's great. Yeah, yeah, so.
Do we
thank you.
have any sense of what the valuation is as a percent of current market value? Are we anywhere down?
We're waiting, so every fall, we do an audit with the state, and so we're waiting for those final numbers. They still have not come back. Becky's waiting. I anticipate we'll be close to 100, but Becky's waiting to see if we've dropped.
And the amount, if it drops to 85%, is that where we have to do a reval?
It's not, it's, usually you get down to 70%, but, I mean, we did a statistical analysis, so we don't have to wait to make adjustments in the value, but there's also your total anticipated value and then that quality ratio. So how good are you all over town? You know what I mean? Not just the full number, but are you matching up with neighborhoods and, you know, houses? And their types, do they make value? So I don't anticipate that we'll see a large decrease, but we haven't received the numbers back from the state yet.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
So Lori, just a quick follow-up to April's train of thought here, and maybe not for tonight's discussion, but for the future. The buckets we have to pull from. So this overlay that we talked about and what April was getting at, the percent that we use or don't use over a 15-year study. Then we have the contingency fund. And then we have the general fund. So those are those our three buckets that we can pull from if we get into, if things pop up outside of?
So when you say contingency, you mean fund balance, or do you mean contingency?
So I think we had, well, I thought we had, when I asked where the monies were for union, you said it was in the contingency.
That's an actual department in the budget, yes.
Yes. So that money is spent on other line items, like the contract that we can't say
Yes.
for sure.
Yep.
So those are those buckets that we can pull. I'm just trying to clarify, you know, when April's saying that, you know, and then what we have pulled or haven't pulled, and would we take another one? We also have other areas of buckets that we pull from that are not completely line item out, like the contingency fund and then the general fund. Is that a correct understanding or a correct way to think about it?
I'm left feeling like we're maybe talking about two subjects in the same
Okay.
conversation. So when we talk about the general fund, so let's think about the town's funds as checking accounts. So the general fund is the main checking account that we run all the department operations out of. And what we do is we have a separate, and keep in mind, these are not real checking accounts, so don't take my words as the gospel and think I've got all these checkbooks. But checkbooks for Gen Z is what we used to write our expenses and deposits in. And so then we have another fund that is capital, let's say. So when we make these department appropriations under capital, that gets taken out of the general fund check put and put in the capital accounts. And so it sits over there because the way we vote for those funds is we call them reserves, capital and reserves. And under state statute, we are allowed to maintain reserves for equipment and land and blah, blah. So those in that other, because remember, the general fund, we cash it out at the end of every year, right? These other funds go year to year to year. So the general fund is our department operations. So then we have a capital fund. Then we also have another fund where we run our enterprise accounts. So enterprise accounts would be wastewater is the biggest, Cape Porpoise Pier, Government Wharf, Recreation Special Revenue, and Dock Square Parking Lot. Those are run out of our enterprise funds. The two don't mix. So when you see in the commitment sheet, it'll say transfer in or transfer out. That's us taking money from those other funds and putting them in the general fund to balance the budget, because we're operating them separately and then acknowledging how they impact each other. So when we talk about the contingency to me is an actual appropriation in the general fund budget, the departments that we review, to handle items that are coming up. Most of the contingency lines, so like the contingency salary line, we expect to spend that, different from a real contingency. We just put it there because we don't have a union contract. And so when we settle that, what we'll do is we'll take the money from the contingency and split it up and then transfer it to each department. It's going to stay within the general fund, stay within that fund, but we're going to put it in the departments where it's needed to pay those salaries. The selectmen have a contingency line that is, I think, 60,000 now, which is true contingency. We don't know what's going to happen. Something might come up. The selectmen might need to appropriate from that. Then we have fund balance. So remember how I talked about each of these funds and each of these checking accounts? They all have their own fund balance. Fund balance is, these are all the expenses I had, here's all the revenues, and this is how much was left. And then that carries from year to year. And so wastewater and enterprise funds have their own fund balance. Pier does, Dock Square parking lot, etc. The capital funds have their own fund balances, like fire. We put in money every year for the fire truck until we buy the fire truck one day. And so they all have balances. And so when we talk about fund balance, though, we're talking about the general fund balance, our main fund balance. And what our fund balance policy says is that we should maintain 18% of the expenditures. We're not just talking town expenditures, we're talking county and RSU as well. Because remember, we are legally responsible for coming up with the revenue to pay those. And so that is something that we have to pay on an annual or monthly basis. So 18% is a little over 2 months. You think of a month out of a year is 8.3%. And so remember that we only get paid twice a year. Remember our chart that says 85% or 84% of our revenues come from property taxes. Those come in September, those come in March. So if you looked at a revenue chart, you'd see a big spike and then nothing and then a big spike. And so meanwhile, if you look at our expenses, they're pretty even except when Eric gets into the checkbook and then it goes all over the place. No, those capital. But for the most part, we pay the school every month, we pay payroll every month. When we get to October, we have a big jump because it's when we pay the county bill, and you pay that in one shot. So what you're trying to do is even out these expenses with your two revenues. And that's where the fund balance assists you in that. It's also considered to be what happened. Remember when COVID came and we were all of a sudden meeting on Zoom and we didn't know what might happen with revenues, if people could pay their bills. It was right, when tax bills were due. And so, that helps you through hard times. Also, it's like a little reserve. It's like the dunes at Goose Rocks Beach. It's our little savings account in case the water comes. And so certainly the town can vote, and that takes a town vote to use fund balance, to expend money out of fund balance. So what was happening when I got here was that the town was using money from fund balance, like to buy the McCabe parcel. And I was trying to separate the idea of what do we have for the basic necessities in fund balance versus what do we need or what do we have available to expend on other things. And that's when we created the capital reserve fund balance. So we measure our fund balance every year at audit time. Anything above 18%, we put into the capital reserve fund balance. It's still all in that general fund checking account. Okay, it hasn't moved. Remember I talked about the capital? Doesn't really move over there. It's still here, but we're just kind of dividing it so we can see where's our minimum that we need and what's extra and available. If the town got into hard times, they would dip into the fund balance. And our fund balance policy says if we do dip in and it goes below 18%, then we will do what we can and come up with a strategic plan to replenish it as soon as possible. And so it lays out that that's the groundwork. And when we go to get rated by Moody's and Standards and Poor to go out for bonding, et cetera, they look at a whole bunch of things, but that's certainly one of the first things they look at is what's your percentage of fund balance and how good are you at collecting taxes? And I'd say right now we're good. So maybe that was too much information, TMI.
That was good, because I didn't realize the 18% was actual school, and I thought it was just municipal.
So when I talk about, so every year we say we're gonna use 200,000 from fund balance. And so really, your goal is, I don't wanna really use that because I wanna maintain my 18%. So even though it's a little game we play with ourselves, we're gonna use this money left over, but then our goal as financial stewards of the town is to collect enough revenue, more revenue, and less expense so that I don't have to dip into that 200,000. So what I say is every year, even though they've appropriated a budget, our goal is to get $200,000 less than that budget because I want to maintain that fund balance. On top of that, every year that the municipal, the county, and the school budget go up, my 18% rate goes up because now it's 18% of a higher number. So I wrote in the budget intro about what that impact would have been from last year, and that impact was about 200,000. It's a little more than 200,000. So every year we're trying to not use our 200,000 we put in the budget. Plus, last year we would have had to save an additional 200,000. And so that's kind of how overlay plays into that. If you budget more conservatively on your revenues, then you'll make it up that way. If you over budget on your expenditures, you'll make it up that way. We budget where we think we're really going to be. And so that's why all I'm saying is all these are layers that we try to look at when creating a budget that fits and also provides that financial stability for the town so that we're always long-range planning.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Good. Nicole, did you want to add anything? All right, so let's continue with the solid waste funding, and we're going to start with Chris Simeone. So if you go to page 139, Chris has a few slides. Oh, yep, and we're going to talk about solid waste.
How's everyone doing? Okay. So our current contract with Casella expires in August of this year. So we did go out this past summer to bid. Basically, there's two large companies that kind of would have had their hat in the ring for this. One is Casella, the other is Waste Management. When we went out to bid, you know, obviously there was some interest, but, you know, the game has kind of changed a little bit. Both companies are moving toward automated pickup, both from, you know, standpoint of safety, but also, you know, savings in labor as well. Nope. Next slide, Dave. So both companies expressed to us that they weren't going to be interested in bidding on this if we were still looking for manual pickup. Ultimately, we did receive a bid from Casella. Waste Management opted not to bid on this contract, but they would like to be, considered for future contracts. So the current contract that we have, we were paying $314,649. The new contract that's going to be starting in September, the cost went up significantly to $506,173. Part of the reason for this is that, under the old contract, the rates were locked in. As everyone knows, since Casella, I always feel like a broken record when I say this, but, costs have gone up everywhere. Everything from fuel to labor to, capital equipment. So Casella was obviously falling behind on that contract.
And the new contract was obviously pre-COVID. It was negotiated pre-COVID.
Correct, yep. So that's why we're seeing a large increase, in cost with this contract. Next slide, please.
Is that a 5-year contract again?
It is. It's a 5-year contract, and, we can agree mutually to extend it beyond the 5 years if both parties are happy.
So Waste Management's gonna be our new.
No, Casella will be. Casella. Waste Management didn't want to bid on it.
Oh, I see. I thought you said Casella.
Yep. Yep.
And is the price constant for the 5 years?
The issue is, obviously, we have different parts of the contract. So we have the pickup, which is a set price, for both the mixed solid waste as well as the recyclables. However, the increase for the tipping fees has gone up. The solid waste has gone up about $1.90 a ton, which wasn't as bad. However, the recycling processing went up $90 a ton. Yeah, quite a difference. So the timeline for this, back in December, we authorized the contract with Casella. After they had confirmation that we were going to enter into a contract with them, they ordered their new truck. They're obviously seeing the same delays that we're seeing when we buy one of the larger, 5-ton dump trucks. They were told it was going to be about a year before they get that truck. This summer, we're going to put out the bid for the new trash carts and start our educational campaign this summer as well as into the fall. And then it's going to be late fall, probably early winter, perhaps just the beginning of the year before we're actually going to go to the new automated pickup because we have to wait on the delivery of Casella's new truck. The next slide, please.
Chris, just a quick question. Just
Sure.
remember last year, but the start of we've already paid for, or budgeted for the.
Mic, please.
I'm sorry. We already paid for the bins, right? We kind of kicked that around quite a
We
bit.
budgeted for the bins last year, and we did put in the contract, the RFP for the bins as well. The vendors were not interested in supplying those, and so now we are going to purchase them ourselves.
So the
But we
monies
have
that we
the-
allocated will
Yep.
have already been in,
Yes.
it's already baked in.
So this is just a snap.
Do we have a view do we have any insight if that cost of the bins has gone up at all, or is it?
No, in my last discussions with them, it looks like those have remained somewhat, steady. It's kind of consistent with the cost of oil, since we priced them out last year. Yep. So this is just a snapshot of the solid waste. So obviously, the solid waste makes up for, basically 86% of the tonnage. So 2,262 tons, and the recycling 13.7% at 359 tons. And I think that was the last slide. Yep. So I don't know if anyone
So
has
if
any
we
questions.
look, let's just look at the budget numbers on page 139. So you'll see how tipping fees is what we pay to actually dispose of the solid waste is up a little, but not a lot. You'll see the curbside waste pickup and curbside recycling we have seen the large increase with that new contract, which is not surprising. We did compare our contract to other municipalities that were going out in the same time period. They were consistent. The one good thing is that we will have weekly recycling going forward. The cost for weekly recycling in the automated system, since they collect it all in one truck, wasn't much more. And then the supplies and equipment, we are looking at operating supplies because we will need to fund some educational campaign material. And then also unacceptable waste for Household Hazardous Waste Day, which we do at Kennebunk. Do you want to just talk about that a little bit this year?
Sure. So this past fall, when we had Household Hazardous Waste Day, we ended up receiving a lot more waste than we had in the past. This is held over at Sea Road. It was actually more than what, the help that was there, the staff that was there was able to take in. The lines were a lot longer than everybody expected. So we typically, budget that line item under this that expense under this unacceptable waste line item. So we've increased that this year. I don't have the number in front of me what we paid last year, but I think it was right around $9,000 that we paid last year. So I think it's great that, people are using that avenue to dispose of that type of waste, but obviously.
Well, you can see this year we've spent $8,800 so far, and that happens in the fall, so.
Yeah. So we are budgeting it a little bit more for the coming year.
Any questions on solid waste?
Can you just go over the last one, the landfill monitoring cost?
Sure. So annually, we have to monitor, we have monitoring wells there that we need to have tested annually. So there is the cost for that contract with R.W. Gillespie is built into this line item. We also had the issue with the PFAS come up, I think it's coming up on 3 years ago now, where we had to, test certain properties in that neighborhood because PFAS was detected in their wells. So this is the ongoing monitoring program that we're doing with DEP right now.
So this isn't anything with the, what road was it? Arundel? This isn't an increase because of a.
Oh, okay. So you're thinking of the Witten Hill Road.
We gave DEP the feedback that was an Arundel
Okay.
issue, and they should follow up with Arundel, and they
Okay,
are.
So that's what I was wondering. I thought
Yep.
maybe that came back to us. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Not today. So next up, our lovely Allison Kenaway.
Can I just ask one more question on the town? Where did we end up, not on the cost side, but just on the process side, where did we end up with the barrels in the port? That was a big discussion on the process that we were gonna,
We haven't
we haven't.
finalized
Okay.
that.
Okay, but is that in the cost side of this, or, okay.
Hi, good evening, everyone. For those who don't know me, I'm Allison Kenaway, Director of Public Health. And I just want to start off by saying thank you very much to our community and for all of you guys for always supporting our department. And we live in a very generous community, and it's really nice to have the community behind us. So we really appreciate it. And our nursing staff loves working for the town and in this community, and let us know how we can help. Change the slide. Slide, please. So I just wanted to introduce my team. So we have one full-time director, and that's me. And then there's 3 per diem nurses that share 26 hours a week, approximately. Kim Noble, you could change the slide, please. Kim Noble, Kristen Garvin, and Stacy Corsi. And we're really lucky to have a very strong nursing team, and we're all from town. Slide, please. So what we've been up to this year, this is a snapshot of the past couple of years, and we've done 1,212 home visits. We've had 603 office visits, to our department. And we have a very busy loan closet this year, lots of equipment in and out for procedures and people borrowing it. Sometimes we get a lot of equipment donated that we can't use, and we end up bringing it up to Partners for World Health, so it's recycled into other communities and also around the whole world. Slide, please. We've had 12 babies born this year, 5 boys and 7 girls, and we delivered the welcome baby bags that we work with the Health Council with. They're filled with little supplies of information, hand-knitted items, little gift certificates and things. That's a picture of a box, but we've moved on to a really nice backpack diaper bag type situation. We love this program because we get to go hold babies. Sometimes. We hosted a fall flu clinic last fall in October for the flu and the COVID vaccines, and we had 126 vaccines given in a 2-hour time frame. It was really busy. We helped Maine Healthy Beaches with water quality testing for 14 weeks at both Goose Rocks and Colony Beaches. We had 150 water samples that were sent off over the summer. And speaking of water sampling, we also host a program with Nelson Analytical for well water testing. We hand out free well water kits, and then you guys bring it to Nelson Analytical in Kennebunk for well water testing. We had 38 people from town participate last year in that program. We've had 12 monthly newsletters, and we did Stand for Seniors again this year. And the foot care clinic that I started 2 years ago is taking off. I have had 176 visits for foot care, up from 152 last year, and I now have 61 consistent customers that come about every 6 to 8 weeks. So it's been really good. Slide, please. The goals for this coming year is to continue to provide all the medical care in home and in the offices for residents and guests, continue programming for health and wellness and education to the community, explore some healthy communities and how we can provide activities and education to increase health and wellness throughout the town, collaborating with others like Parks and Rec, Graves Library, the Land Trust. Continue water quality at both beaches, Goose Rocks and Colony. Continue my foot care clinics. We also provide GA and social service needs, and keep up with our continuing education for the nurses. Budget changes, slide please. Budget changes, we just have an increase in wage and contractual adjustments, along with a new contract for vehicle replacement, which is actually in the process right now. To
So if
replace
you
that
look
electric vehicle.
on the first page, on page 143, you will see travel and meetings. We have $5,000 increase there, 6,000. So the town has been fortunate for 3 years to have a electric vehicle that was zero cost, and the public health nurses were able to access that. We used to pay a considerable amount of mileage, and that lease is up this March, and so we are entering into a new contract, but it is cheaper to make the lease payment than it is to pay mileage, so we thought it made sense to go with another electric vehicle. We are using funds from the Pick of It fund, so that's one of those transfer ins from our trust funds, another fund, and that shows up on the revenue side.
That's all I got for the public health part. Does anyone have any questions? Sure.
Are we still the only town?
As far as I know, yes.
The only town in general? Or
Every year he asks the same
We
question.
think so, right?
on the face of
The only
earth?
town with a public health nurse department, town nurse.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
gonna make him finish the sentence.
Yes?
Allison, how much do you pay for the baby boxes or
So that's
knapsack?
supported by the Health Council here in town, so it's not funded through our department. We just make the contact with the town clerk who informs us of the new baby that's born, and we deliver to the homes, and we make that contact and introduce ourselves. But the Health Council here provides all that, the bags and goodies that comes with it.
And on the water, well water test kits, are those given free of charge?
Yes.
Okay.
But
There's
people
a
pay
small
for
fee.
you pay for the testing, though.
Yeah, Nelson
the person
Analytical
pays for the
has a
testing.
list of different tests that you can choose from, and it has a price associated with
Yeah.
each test. The kit is free, but then you choose what you would like to have done, and you pay that price. Sure. Any other questions? No? So we'll go on to welfare and social services.
Yep, so page 149.
Where did we end up on the bus?
Where did we end up on the bus?
Didn't
The
we have a
bus is not
discussion about the bus?
in the capital
Oh, in the
plan,
capital,
but
sorry.
not in the
I'll
budget.
wait. I'll wait.
I didn't
I'm
know
not
if you
buying a
meant a
bus.
physical
I
bus.
saw a picture of the bus, and that's why it's in my head. Where's the bus?
Again, I'd like to just thank the community for the generosity that we receive. The Public Health Department is responsible for the state mandated GA program. It's a application process, and it's all income-based. And so if someone applies for GA and they don't qualify through the state, we have other means through our town and community to help people. We have a fuel assistance account here that we help with fuel assistance. And last year, we had 12 families participate with fuel assistance and helped with 4 CMP disconnects. Food assistance, we have various ways to help those who are in need of food through a food assistance, and community outreach services is the food pantry that services the 3-town community. We have a general needs program as well, and the general needs program is to help people who don't fit into all those other categories. We have a little committee that we meet together, review the requests, and then we can try to see how to help people in through that program. We also have other ways to help families through the backpack program. In the fall, we have the Health Council and Rotary CS3, which is Community Strong, Children Strong, Character Strong, and they help provide back-to-school clothes for students in need. So we have backpacks with supplies and clothing with, for back-to-school. Last year, we had 7 children participate in those programs. Secret Santa is another option that we have through town, well, not through town, but they're here, a group. We had 8 children participate with Secret Santa for Christmas gifts. Community Harvest and Community Outreach Services also provide meals for Thanksgiving and Christmas. You can sign up for already made meals, and you can also sign up for baskets of food to prepare a Thanksgiving or Christmas dinner at home. We had 14 families participate in that program for both Christmas and Thanksgiving. The apparel impact bins that we have out here and up at the police station, for families in need, if they request, I can get clothing and bedding through that program because we host them here in town. We also work closely with York County Community Action for fuel assistance, electric assistance, some minor house repairs programs. These are all income-based programs, but we work very closely with them. We encourage the residents to apply there, and then we work with them to help them get what they need. Last year, we had 23 general assistance requests, which was up by 12 from the year 2022. None of them actually qualified through the state, but we were able to help everyone through all these other programs. And that's all I have for general assistance. Any questions? No?
Thank you for it. Great job.
Thank you.
Nice work.
So next, we have the shellfish conservation on page 153. And Everett Leach is our shellfish warden. So Everett, I'm gonna have you come up to the podium. So if we, did I give you the right?
Yeah,
153, is that what I said?
Yep.
So, the shellfish conservation budget is really made up of mostly our warden, and Everett serves as our warden to make sure the flats are signed correctly and that people aren't breaking any of the ordinance rules that we have regarding shellfish. So do you want to just give people an update on where we are with shellfish?
Right at the moment, we are in the process with the state to formulate a shellfish management plan, more like a comprehensive plan, what we want to do in the future, from reseeding to surveys to, and asking people to fill out any surveys at the end of the season, where they dug, how many they dug, and what they thought of the clam flats. Okay. We want to do some reseeding next year, well, late this year to ask for it in the budget, but that's the plan. So, but other than that, things were going smoothly. If there's any questions?
Does anybody have any questions for Everett?
Just a clarification from
Certainly.
what we approved from the board was for the yearly. So is it going to be April to April for the licenses?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So the year.
That
would
is
be
correct.
April.
When I came, that's when it was in effect. It was April 15th is when the start date was for clamming. And we're sticking around that base of start time.
Okay.
So this year, we're actually gonna sell them on April 11th. Okay, so,
But then the year thing will go April to April.
exactly,
Got
until
it.
the following,
Yep.
who knows what date next year?
Yep.
We work it between the town clerks, when they can do it, and when we can give them some help.
Those licenses go quickly, don't they? So you make sure you let people know.
Most of them are up on it. Some are already calling the town clerk's office. But being a shellfish commission, they're mandated by the state to post that 10 days in advance. Whether it's at the post office, whether it's on this town's website. So, and we hope to be doing it here instead of at the town office next year, because there's room for parking. Before, there was issues with the neighbors on parking, and, as you say, it goes fast, but that's because a lot of people were there at 5 in the morning, so.
My husband. Yeah, my husband gets up and goes for his license.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Everett, for
Very
coming
good.
out.
Thank you.
So next we are at public restrooms, which is page 155. So this covers cleaning the Dock Square restrooms. So this is, remember I told you Dock Square is an enterprise fund? And so this is one of these transfers. So we budget the expense here to pay for the cleaning and maintenance, and then we transfer in revenues from that Dock Square fund into our general fund budget to pay for it. We also rent porta potties at various locations, and that's paid through this account as well. Any questions on public restrooms?
So net, our parking
Net,
pays?
net zero.
Net zero. It's good. And we're full cash at the revenue, or are we full debit now at the revenue?
We're still cash and credit at Dock Square.
Okay.
So next, we are gonna see Chris again to review Public Works budget. And it is on page 157.
Okay. Next slide, please. So this is just a snapshot. Within Public Works, we kind of have the two divisions. One is the Highway Roads Division. The other is wastewater. We have a total of 7 employees at Highway, 6 at wastewater, and we have 2 mechanics, 1 at each facility. Highway Department's responsible for 52 miles of road, 12 miles of sidewalk. We're also responsible for a fair amount of the shade tree work that it gets done. On the wastewater side, we obviously have the wastewater treatment plant. We have 16 major pump stations and 88 grinder pump stations at individuals' houses, 50 catch basins, and it's just an idea how much water we treat in a year, 151 plus million gallons of water a year. Next slide, please. This is our current organizational chart. We have the Public Works Director, and under each, on either side, we have the Principal Town Engineer on the wastewater side, the Operations Manager on the highway side, and this is kind of how everybody else falls underneath. Next slide, please. So just a little bit of what we're responsible for is the winter maintenance, so all the plowing of the roads and sidewalks, the parking lots here in town, road reconstruction and repair that's within our ability. Maintenance of all parks and open spaces, maintenance and painting of all traffic marking. So the crew is actually, responsible for anytime you see the individual parking stalls painted in the parking lots, on the side of, the Spring Street and Dock Square, all the crosswalks. We do all that ourselves. The only thing that we do sub out would be the road, because obviously we don't have the equipment to do that. We're also responsible for the maintenance of town facilities, repair of all town vehicles, and special projects as assigned. Picture on the left was a recent project that we took on Pearl Street. We actually installed the raised curb sidewalk the entire length of Pearl Street. You may remember that we only had a raised sidewalk on one half of that street. So that was a project we took on this fall. And on the right is in one of the finished stages, what you see there. The only thing that we hadn't done was rebasing up against the curb, but it's just an example of one of the projects that we took on. Next slide, please. This is really the makeup of the budget. The largest part of that is obviously personnel at 51%, followed by benefits at 25%. Next slide, please. I'm going to sit here and tell you I sound like a broken record again, but the biggest budget drivers for us are motor and heating fuel prices. Those are still up. Material cost, the cost of culverts, cost of structures when we're doing road reconstruction, that type of stuff is still up. Labor cost is up. We have found ourselves obviously competing with, the private sector, so labor cost is high. Equipment cost and chain supply issues, we're still seeing this with the larger trucks that we order. It's gotten a little bit better with the smaller vehicles, but we're still seeing these large equipment costs with the bigger equipment. And again, the competing labor market for skilled labor. It's hard to find people right now that have commercial driver's licenses, that have the type of skills that we need. I guess the easiest way to look at it is, the Public Works Department is kind of everything that is not police or fire. So, we're always looking for those individuals that have kind of a wide array of skills. So, next slide, please. So the biggest changes you're going to see with the highway budget is a decrease in the salt line item. We've had a little bit of a warmer winter this year. Most of what we saw was rain. I think we're at a total of 7 or 8 events that we had to come out for, for either snow or icing. So because of that, we haven't had to use nearly the salt that we've had to use in the past. So we still have kept some in inventory, and we were able to reduce that line item for the coming year. Liquid road treatment, same idea. We just had a load of that come in, so as a result, we'll have that for use for next year, so we're able to decrease that line item as well. And next slide. Tree trimming, I think everybody can agree. We've had a lot of issues this year, with the recent storms. Trees are always a concern. None of us like to lose electricity. The issue that we've had in the past is we're just not really set up to do a lot of this. It typically takes, a bucket truck or something like that, which we don't have. So we tend to kind of prioritize work that's needed, or I should say, that requires a bucket truck. This year, we've actually added $10,000 to the budget so that we can accomplish, getting some of the concerns done that we have currently that we're not able to tackle ourselves. $10,000 sounds like a lot, but in reality, it's enough for about 4 or 5 days worth of work, subcontracted out to a crew. Reason for that is tree work is very expensive. The biggest part of their expense is insurance. I didn't realize that, but their liability insurance is extremely high. So we're going to start with this and see how we fare, and hopefully, with this bit of money as well as the work that CMP's done, we'll experience less of those power outages.
Chris, on the CMP side of that, do you have any insight? Are they coming back through town?
I haven't had any conversations with them lately. They've done a fair amount of work in town. The work that they're going to do is within their easement for the utility. I think the biggest concern would be those trees that are outside, the easement area. Some of those are on private property. But for the most part, they've actually done a really good job cleaning within their easement.
So if the line is across the street and the tree is leaning over from the other side, and it's one of those scraggly trees that has like 3 trunks coming up and it's going to go in a storm, CMP, that's outside of CMP's range.
Unless they look at it and they feel like it's a dangerous tree.
Okay. And,
What? Oh, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna ask around the CMP work and whether or not something falls within private property. What exactly are, I guess, their controls? I mean, is there some way for them to work with the property owner? Is it completely up to the property owner regardless of what the situation might be with the tree?
Well, they can cut with what's in the easement. So, they have whatever that width may be. They can work within that easement to accomplish that. If there is a tree that is on private property that is either, determined to be a threat to the air utility or to even our roads, I think that's when we would reach out to the homeowners and try to work with them on coming up with a solution for that. We did have that recently down at Goose Rocks Beach. CMP actually came down and took that tree down because they determined that to be a dangerous tree to their utility. So,
Okay. And it would be their determination?
I'm sorry?
It would be their determination or the town's?
Well, it could be either.
Okay.
Yeah, it could be either. If the utility decides it's not, a dangerous tree for their utility, but we feel like it's an issue for, our road, we would probably try to work with the homeowner to have them taking it down. And if not, we would, at that point, there is an avenue to pursue to have them take it down. But quite honestly, the amount of time that's involved in having to go to court to do that usually ends up with the town paying for it. So.
When the slide up here refers to a $10,000 budget for contracting of services. So do you contract with someone like a Lucas Tree? Is that the kind of thing that you do?
So currently, right now, we're actually fortunate to have one of our wastewater employees that has his own, tree business. Currently, he's done a lot to help the town out. And typically what we do is he offers up his bucket truck at an hourly rate and then actually cuts the trees on his town rate. So it's saved the town quite a bit of money. I think he will probably be retiring in the coming years, so we may not have that, opportunity. But for now, that's worked well to save the town a lot of money.
A question?
Yeah, Chris, this is Rick Wakeland, and this is a question I ask virtually every year. Our private property here is very heavily infested with trees, and we also have a very an older community. And when we have problems with weather and we have tree limbs that come down in our yards, not in the road, but in our yards, have you given any thought to perhaps having a process if we have to cut a limb or the limb falls, if we get it to the side of the road, that you could potentially pick it up and get rid of it? It's really difficult for many of us to clean up our yards as well as our property.
At this time, that's not a service that we offer. You know, certainly if the board would like to move in that direction and have us explore that, we certainly would. The issue would be, you know, larger events, storm events, where we're simply not staffed to handle that.
Well, I was potentially thinking about maybe doing it once a year, not just for storms, but to clean up our yards and clean up our property, to have a way that we could get it to the side of the roads and get truck. Fortunately, I have a pickup truck, so I don't have that particular issue, but I know there's many who don't.
Sure. I mean, again, you know, if this is a service that perhaps the board would like to offer in the future, we could certainly explore that.
I'm just going to throw it out there, so if we talk about it later and bring it up, I think it's probably something that might appeal to all of us.
Sure.
Thank you.
As you look at the salaries and wages and benefits line, you're going to see some changes, and that's really because we've had changing in staff over the past year. And so these numbers reflect the current staff and their participation in those programs. You will see the expert and professional line, which is the last line on page 159, 2006. That's where that additional $10,000 in contracted tree trimming services is. And then street marking on page 160 has gone up 5,000. And do you want to just talk about that?
Sure. So in the past, with the budget that we've had, we haven't always been able to paint, you know, all the streets. So this $5,000 increase will allow us, you know, the crew not only to accomplish, you know, all the crosswalks and the parking stalls and all the other striping that we're responsible for in town, but it'll also allow us to paint the roads once a year as well. And it's in the town's entirety, so.
And then we did talk about the salt, and so on page 162, at the top of the page, you'll see the salt and liquid road treatment. So salt is 800 tons that we're looking to purchase. That's about 400 tons under what we normally budget. So it's not that we're thinking that from now on we need 800 tons, but we're planning to purchase our supply as much as we can with the current year's budget, since we have savings, so we're able to reduce that next year. And the liquid road treatment, the budget for last year allowed for 2 deliveries. There's 4,300 gallons you have to buy at a time. And so we are able to fill up this year. That would leave us with enough funding for 1 more treatment load next year if we need it. And so that's why those reductions are in there.
Okay, next slide. You know, so as we look ahead, you know, the goals for the coming year and after that, certainly going to try a little more tree maintenance, keeping up for the demand for services. You know, this is one area we have seen more demand for a number of things. You know, everything from drainage issues to roadside mowing, to debris cleanup. So we're trying to work through those. Obviously, I would say this is an unconventional year with the storms that we've had, but that does prompt a demand for more services. And again, you know, using technology that's available to us to kind of streamline our operations. And, certainly as we purchase equipment moving ahead, buying equipment that's going to be the most efficient and help us, provide these services for the town. And I think that was it.
Chris,
Dan?
what's the position at this point of the Wells District extension?
Sure.
Or not extension, but rebuilding.
Sure. Yeah, we were hoping to be down there in early spring this year, but after the recent storm that we had in January, we certainly have a lot of work to do on Ocean Avenue, where we've lost sections of the sidewalk, section of the road in 2 places. So our priority coming up is going to be taking care of that damage first. We are currently we're going to defer a sidewalk project that we had planned to cover the expenses of those repairs on Ocean Avenue. We're not able to start those repairs right away because, as you may be familiar, the asphalt plants are currently closed, so we can't get asphalt. So we don't want to make those repairs too soon, just in case we have another storm, and we certainly don't want to strip that asphalt off until we can replace it with something. As soon as we're able to get that done and clean up our seasonal items that we typically have in the spring, such as the painting, seasonal signage, that type of stuff, we plan to come right back down to Walls District Road because we do need to finish up our drainage down there. Next week, we'll be going over capital, and we're currently looking to be funded to reclaim that section of Walls District Road and also base pave it. But we need to get in and get our drainage issue straightened out on Walls District Road before we, have the base paving done. But we would like to get in and get out of there as quick as we can so that we can reclaim the road and base pave it before winter.
Is there any, in the drainage, is there any thought of what they're gonna do with the area by Mary Bryant's old house that's going across and causing a mess across the road?
Yes, there is. Yeah, we actually just had a meeting on that today. We're in discussions right now with that owner. We're looking to have them do some improvements for the time being until our crew gets down and we're able to install the drainage that we had anticipated on installing down there. When we do get down there, we're looking to put catch basins in, and reshape the road a little bit differently. And we're going to carry that, stormwater back down to the intersection and across the street. So there are plans to take care of that.
Thank you.
Chris?
Yep.
I just want to say, I continue to be amazed by the stuff you do in-house and don't hire out to do. I think that a lot of towns should do that, and you guys do a great job of it.
Well, thank you. I can't take any of the credit for that. It's the crews. I'm fortunate to have very competent crews on both sides, and these are the guys and the gals that are, out in the ditches doing the work, and they're doing a good
Well,
job.
it's appreciated, and it's passing on.
Yeah, thank you.
And I was going to reiterate the same thing. It didn't take long after all of the storms for the roads to be cleared, for the debris to be picked up. Your crew is just amazing.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Any more accolades for Chris and his crew?
We love you, man.
Well, I feel like I'm kind of on par with Allison tonight now, so.
You're not nearly as good looking.
No, I know that, Dan, I know.
You can stay right there because you're going to do streetlights. But first, we're going to do on page 167 fire hydrants. And so this is the rate we pay for fire hydrants to Kennebunkport Wells Water District. And they are looking at a rate increase, they have informed us, and so we have budgeted for that. Any questions on that? If not, we are going to page 173 with street lights, and we're back to Chris.
So as everybody's aware, I mean, we all obviously get our electric bill from CMP. There's been a significant increase in the expense of the electricity. So with that, obviously, we're at this point in time lighting about 200 street lights in town. As a result, that line item for the electricity had to go up with that. Next slide. Right. So obviously, next week is capital, but, we have budgeted to replace more of our streetlight fixtures in the coming year. We bought a total of 20 this year. We just had a meeting last night with the lighting committee to choose a location for those 20 new fixtures. And as soon as we pick that, we'll have our subcontractor out installing those. And then we'll be working on the locations for the coming 20 fixtures if they're funded.
I have a question on that.
Sure.
So I think I had the same question last year, and I don't remember the answer, but I apologize. But I have an ongoing thing about the looks of the lights in Dock Square. I think they're embarrassing, the condition of them, based on other towns in our area, including Kennebunk. What's the plan for those?
And you're talking about the lamp posts?
Yeah.
Yes, yep.
Half
So.
of them are lit, not all there.
Yep, they do have, excuse me, different lighting, fixtures on them. So this is something that we spoke about last night as well. They're going to start looking at this issue. Just recently, this past summer, we've had a couple motor vehicle accidents down there involving delivery trucks and two of the lampposts actually knocking them over to the point where they're beyond repair. Obviously, it's difficult to source something that is exactly the same because of the age of them. So for the time being, I did source the two closest lampposts that we could find that were, compatible with what we have down there or have a similar look. So I would say take a look at those after we get those up. One's going to be installed in front of Copper Candle. The other will be in front of the Honor parking lot, and see what your thoughts are on that. And the lighting committee is going to move forward with, looking into that more and making a recommendation.
That is in the long-range budget, that's included in this package?
Those are not included in this budget. We need to, that'll be a project in and of its own. I would say that there's a fair amount of work that would need to be done to replace all of those lights down there. We have no idea how the electricity is run down there to those lights. Obviously the road has been built up over years, sidewalk's been built up over years. So the foundations for all of those lights are gonna have to be looked at and probably redone. So it's gonna be part of a bigger project, most likely.
Are you gonna keep the look of those lights downtown? I mean, you're not gonna put up light posts, it's gonna be those lamp posts?
Yeah, you're talking the ones on the sidewalk?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, so there's.
Sheila wants a more modern look.
No, I want it quaint.
Well, so obviously we had to, purchase two replacements for the ones that got damaged in the accident. They're similar to what's down there right now. So I would say take a look at those two after we get those up and see what your thoughts are at that point.
When are those going up?
Well, you're going to see those, not next week, it'll be the following Selectmen's meeting, because that's going to have to come to you because of the cost. I think they were somewhere around $7,000 a piece. So we're going to bring that to you for authorization, and as soon as we have that authorization, we'll proceed with buying those two replacement poles, and then as soon as we have them, our subcontractor can put them up.
Okay.
How come insurance doesn't cover that for the people that hit them?
It does. So we actually have to do the work. Our insurance company is going to cover the cost of that, and then they're going to subrogate that out to the insurance companies of the vehicles that were involved.
That was my question.
It'll be a wash, yes, yep,
Are these the fixtures that are going up all over town?
yes,
And the same one everywhere?
correct.
Nice.
Alan, did you have another question? No.
She asked my question.
Okay.
Insurance. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, the street light fixtures, yep.
Okay, so we're all done with street lights. Anything else for Chris? Anybody want to tell him he did a great job one more time, or?
Great job.
Great job. Get all the lights, I will give you one.
So next we have Stephanie in Recreation at page 177. Stephanie does a great job too, especially with our summer community events.
It's a hard act to follow here. Thank you, everyone, for having me here. Happy to present my budget to you tonight. This is a snapshot of what we've been busy doing this past year in the Parks and Rec staff. Slide. So the Parks and Recreation Department is made up of 3 staff, 3 full-time staff. We have myself as the director, and I have 2 program coordinators working for me. We hire many seasonal part-time staff, not only in the summer, but throughout the year. We hire a lot of part-time staff working our programs. So Parks and Recreation, I just want to let you know, Parks and Recreation, this is kind of a big picture, Parks and Rec. Parks and Recreation is a leader in youth sports, providing opportunities for children of all skills and abilities to play and introducing kids to a wide variety of sports. Parks and Recreation counters social isolation by connecting people with nature and with each other. And people with access to parks and green spaces live longer, healthier lives. So Parks and Recreation is important. Next slide, please. So I am one of the departments that operates on 2 different budgets. Tonight we are talking about the general fund budget, and I will be back to another meeting to talk about special revenue, but this is just kind of the differences in what those 2 budgets are. The general fund budget covers salaries and benefits for full-time staff, the utilities for our building, services such as IT, supplies and equipment for our building and for some park work, and repairs and maintenance of both the buildings and the vehicles we have. So we have the bus, we have 2 mowers, and lots of small equipment that we use throughout the year. Some notable line items I want to mention to you as you're looking through the budget. 1207, which is travel and meetings, and the training and education, 1208. Those have increased this year because I am budgeting to send 2 staff to the National Parks and Recreation Conference. I think it's important to keep staff up to date on trends in Parks and Recreation, and just this conference is a valuable tool and many great sessions for them to attend, for me to attend, and bring back lots of new knowledge to Kennebunkport. Our office supply budget has gone up, and that is because we are budgeting to purchase new chairs for the rec building. Our operating supplies is up slightly, and we are budgeting to purchase a power generator station that we can use not only for our bounce house that we have at all of our events, but also we do some events out in the parks, and a lot of times there's not electricity out there. So the small generator will certainly help with running events. Our computer line item is up. We do have 1 staff budgeted to receive a new computer this year, and that is 3008. 3004 is our Parks and Open Spaces line item, and we are budgeting for a new play structure safety surface, both at the playgrounds at Parsons Field and over at Rotary Park. So both of those playgrounds will be receiving some new, people call it mulch, it is not mulch, it's safety surface, under the playgrounds there. And 3501, our buildings department, that budget is actually down this year because we did have a couple projects that we have completed this past year. And that's kind of Parks and Recreation in a nutshell. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Are we resurfacing the courts at Rotary, or?
That's in the capital budget?
Big capital.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Any other questions?
Yes, I have one. I noticed that your electricity has not gone up as much as earlier. People said that they were like going to double for next year from the 23 budget. I just wondered, you show your electricity is going to be the same.
Yeah, so the electricity is budgeted by finance. I'm gonna let Nicole talk about how we go about that.
So for the electricity line items all through the departments, what I do is I take a calendar year usage for all departments. So for calendar year '23, I go through all the bills and I see the usage for the total year. And then I'll take that based on the new prices for the electric contract plus the delivery charges. And that's how I come up with that number. So her usage was pretty much the same for the prior year, so that's why there's not much of an increase in her budget for that line item.
I still, I guess I don't understand because we just saw a presentation that said my electricity is going to go double. And now we're seeing it's going to be the same. So and CMP is not going to.
Right, the rate
not gonna
has
raise it.
changed. Yeah, Rick, the rate has changed, and we have budgeted a different rate for this year. But keep in mind, Parks and Rec is one of our newer buildings, our newest
Okay.
building. And so they have more updated equipment. They do have heat pumps and electricity that they use, but the electric heat is the backup, and depending on how well and the temperatures, that electric heat isn't kicking on. I think we also had some challenges where the previous year, the heat pumps and the electric heat were working against each other. And so I think that those have been straightened out as well. So that impacted the kilowatt hours, I believe.
Okay, thank you.
It's still up, though. It's up 21%.
20%.
Yeah, it's 20.
Yeah, it's up 20%.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying it's not double.
It's not
No,
20%.
no.
Yeah.
The generators.
Wait till you see the wastewater budget.
Any other questions?
Good job.
Thank you.
So next, we're gonna go to Goose Rock's Beach Advisory Reserve, which is on page 193. So the Goose Rock's Beach Advisory Reserve account funds the reserve that we need to meet the requirements from the beach use agreement and the beach use ordinance. And so the town is committed to funding a level of $2,000 per beach use agreement signer. We have 65 agreements, and so we need 130,000 in our reserve account. So that's never a perfect number in that reserve account, so we try to make sure we budgeted enough to pay for our expenses, and depending on what may have happened the previous year, you know, either increase it or know that we have enough funding to make it through. The majority of the salaries and wages are for the summer. So we fund the beach officers out of this account that patrol the beach, and that's another piece of the beach use agreement and beach use ordinance. The FICA is along with that, salaries and wages. The expert professional is the water quality testing that we do at the beach, and so public health talks about that, and we did additional DNA testing last year. And so we plan to continue with our water advisory group to continue that DNA testing in the rivers so we can spot if there are any impacts from septic systems. And then the Goose Rock's Beach advisory expenses are rather miscellaneous. So certainly as part of our beach use agreement, the town is required to do education and outreach as well. So the constant contact subscription is used to notify people about the beach advisory committee activities, our Goose Rock's Beach parking stickers, and then we pay for brochures that are put at every beach entrance. And if we update signage, et cetera, that comes out of that account as well. So what I do each year is we look at what the balance year-to-date is, and you can see this year-to-date, we've spent 41,000 out of the 51. We'll bring people on in May, we'll get the Goose Rock speech stickers, we'll get the brochures ready, and we get ready for Memorial Day weekend. By the middle of June, we have staff out on the beach. And then I look to see what that balance may be each year at the end of the fiscal year. This goes into those reserve accounts. So this gets taken from our general fund and the balance gets put into our Goose Rock Speech Advisory Reserve account. And then we monitor where we are with that level, but we're trying to meet that $130,000 level. Does anybody have any questions on this? Yes?
So I look at the 2023 actual. This is personnel, 3305, the first item. 32,800. And then year-to-date, 2024, 25,594. Isn't the majority of the expense, the large, most of the expense in the first quarter?
Yes, most of the expenses in the first quarter, yep.
So the remaining amount of personnel for salary and wages would be in somewhat in June. You said the last couple of weeks of June?
Yeah, we bring them in earlier, so we pay for a week of training as well, but yes.
So that's a huge increase, 45,000.
45,000. We anticipate there will be a wage increase as well. So we're competing in the market to hire those summer officers. And what we have seen is that it's been more challenging as places like Dunkin' Donuts and even Parks and Rec increases their wages. And so we anticipate a wage increase there as well.
What's the current, what in 2024 was the, fiscal 2024 was the rate of those individuals?
Do you remember? I want to say it was around $17.50, $18 an hour, and we're looking to go up to $18.50, $19.
To walk on the beach, I'd rather do that than
Well,
flip a burger.
Alan, we are taking applications. And
Volunteer.
It's actually, so it's the beach and it's parking, ticketing, right?
Right, they do both.
Yeah.
Usually, they will have one assigned to the beach and one walking along the parking area. Last summer, we actually attracted someone who lives at the beach, who wanted to do it, and they were great at it. Usually, it's younger people who come and do it for the summer.
Thank you.
But we'll put your name down, Alan.
Okay. I just remember many years ago that there was a beer patrol, and they kept the beer.
Did they? That was an incentive that we haven't tried. I'm concerned they might try to use it. All right, so if we go to page 199, that is the contingency lines, and I am going to let Yanina and Nicole talk about that.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Yanina Nicholas, Director of Support Services. I will talk to you about contingency lines. So if you will look at the screen, you will see that the majority of our contingency is taken by personnel. And then the second one is benefits, which makes sense because personnel and salaries kind of bring the benefits up. And Nicole will talk about utilities and miscellaneous part of contingency account. To understand why this increase, I want to step a little bit back and give you a little flavor of what's the market like and what the world we're living in today. Next slide, please. So just generally speaking, the town of Kennebunkport has union employees who are hourly employees and non-union employees who are hourly and salaried are mostly department directors. So what's different this year compared to other years and why the increase? Next slide. So the first and the biggest difference is our union contract expires June 30th, 2024. We usually sign it for 3 years, and this is the time for us to renegotiate the contract. And also, the labor market is challenging this day and age. You've heard it a lot, but it's true. So Maine unemployment rate is 3.4% as of January 1, 2024, and you can see it on the graph. Next slide, please. Well, the whole United States is having a low unemployment rate. But in addition to it, we live in Maine. And Maine is kind of aging. And you can see the graph of 65 plus is going up. So this is the projected population changes between 2018 and 2028. So you can see that 65 is going up while the other segments of population ages are going down. Next slide, please. This is explained with baby boomers. In the last 30 years, the largest segment of Maine's population has moved from prime working ages towards later career or retirement age. And as you can see on this graph, baby boomers entered in the workforce somewhere in late, 60s, and now they decided to retire. So was the idea that state of Maine is aging population state, and there are not as many younger people, we're having these issues with the labor market. And if this wasn't enough, next slide, please. On top of it, Kennebunkport is a wonderful community, and we're tucked in, and it's a great place to work but we are still competing with large dogs for labor. So we are competing with Wells, Kennebunk, Biddeford, Old Orchard, Scarborough, South Portland. As you might remember, during our first presentation, Lori talked about the travel time, the commute for our employees, and that this picture coincides with whom we compete and where people travel from. So we just try to be on par with those communities while being fair to our employees, treating them fairly and having the best labor. As HR director, I would say that there were some positions that are still very challenging to fill. So you might see police officers, public works department is quite challenging to fill, but we're doing a good job. We might wait a little longer for those positions to be filled, but we're still doing a good job. And that's why we budgeted to make sure that we are fair and we're consistent with our wages. So.
You're up. Okay. So other parts of the contingency funds are the accrued liability account, which we budget $10,000 every year to put into a reserve account. And that's for when employees retire, their vacation time gets paid out, and if they've been here a long time, they get, and have sick time on the books, they get half of their sick time paid out as well. And as part of the audit process, we have to account for the accrued liabilities. So rather than having the payouts hit us all in one year, we put a little money aside into a reserve account to cover that line item. And then we have the fuel contingency, which pretty much just is a contingency account that covers any fluctuation in the fuel market, because the prices that we have in the budget could change, they could go up, and then we just have this extra money to put towards each department if their budgets go over. And then the miscellaneous contingency, there is an amount in there for the Board of Selectmen to cover unanticipated expenses, and if the money is not spent, it goes back to the general fund balance, which does require the Board of Selectmen to vote in order to expend those funds. And that covers contingency. Any questions?
Lori, have you started the contract negotiations yet?
We had our first meeting this week.
And what is the town proposing for increases in salaries?
So I would not talk about union negotiations in public. We have not proposed anything yet. We are waiting for the union proposal.
Okay, so we don't, what, is this $340,000 like, based on a percentage, or?
It's based, Yanina did an analysis of the market and positions, and so certainly it's based on an overall cost of living adjustment, but it's also based on, we believe, some positions are not up to par more than others, and so to us, it is a market readjustment for positions.
Oh, good.
But we have to go through that negotiation process, so.
Great.
Any other questions on contingency?
Thank you.
So the last one for tonight is page 219, debt service, and Nicole's going to take you through that.
So on pages 219 and 220, you'll see all of our debt service accounts. And these include the principal and interest payments for each outstanding bond. So one thing to note is that with the wastewater bonds, they are budgeted 60% in the general fund and 40% in the wastewater enterprise fund. And then also you will see that we had a balloon payment of $7.2 million for the village parcel, which was due this budget year, and we are refinancing that over 15 years, and that's also shown in this budget. So on this slide, so this slide right here shows our debt includes both town operations and wastewater bonds. And this is as of June 30th, 2023. The outstanding general obligation bonds are about 10.6 million, and the sewer bonds are 1.8 million, for a total of 12.5 million in outstanding debt. Next slide. In this chart, you will see the current outstanding debt payments from 2024 through 2045, which is our last current payment. Also, this shows a list of our outstanding debt, which we have the police building, the rec building, seawall, village parcel, radio tower, and 2 wastewater bonds.
Seawall is? Ocean Ave. Okay.
Next slide. So the state of Maine has a constitutional debt limit of 15% of our valuation, and this chart shows that we're at 2.5% of our valuation. Next slide.
Should we say that again?
So this slide also shows how much we've financed in each of these bond projects and when they will mature. And that's what I got. Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. So that's everything we plan to cover tonight. Next week, we plan to do capital. There was a lot of capital questions tonight, as well as chems, the libraries, and other committees. Does anybody have any outstanding questions or requests for additional information?
Well done, everybody. Now you guys get to go home.
Would you like to adjourn your meeting?
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Second? All those in favor?
Okay.
We are adjourned.
Budget board is adjourned.
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.
Can we take a 2 minute?
Yeah, sure.
Thanks.
Let's take 5 minutes. No?
5 minutes would be great. Yeah. Yep.
Okay, folks, we're getting back into session. Thank you. So the next item on the agenda is to approve the February 20th LD 2003 joint workshop minutes and the February 22nd, 2024 Select Board meeting minutes.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Alan? Aye. Okay, unanimous. The next is a public forum. It's an opportunity for anyone who wants to address the Board of Selectmen with any issue that is not on the agenda. Anybody in the audience? Anybody out in?
We have someone in
Oh, there is. Sure, go ahead. Sorry, didn't see your hand. Sure,
Please,
yeah.
I don't know if this is the time to mention this. My name is Joe Krulis, and I've been a resident of the town, full-time resident for the last decade. And I've been speaking with some of my neighbors, 12 neighbors to be precise, and they have told me that they have a hard time, or practically no time, that can park down at Goose Rock Beach between Memorial Day and Labor Day. So I took it upon myself to go to a surrounding town. I went to Wells, went to their town hall, and spoke with the Public Works Department, and he showed me the lot where they parked down in Wells. And he showed me that they have 10 designated spots for Wells residents only, 5 for veterans, 5 for handicap, and then the rest are day passes. And he said, we don't have a problem with that. I said, okay. So then last July, I work part-time, so for me to go to the beach is the big thing on my day off. So it was in July, and I know July is a busy time down at Goose Rocks Beach. So I packed my thermos and lunch and chairs, and there were 3 of us going down. We got there at 7:45 in the morning. There was not one space open out of all those parking spaces on Goose Rocks Beach. It was a Tuesday. And so I thought, well, okay, I'm going to go by and count the cars. 71% of the cars were from Massachusetts. 20% were from New York, Connecticut, Vermont, New Hampshire, and Rhode Island. And 9% were Maine plates. So turned around, went home, didn't get to go to the beach that day. When I want to go to the beach, I live 1.5 miles away from the beach. I live in Mills Road. So when I have company coming or family from Connecticut come and visit, I go, put them all in my car, go down, drop them off, come back, and then I'll ride a bicycle back to the beach. And then when I want to leave, I go back to the house, get the car, pick them up, because I can't find a parking space. So I went into the Tides Hotel that summer, and I spoke to the manager at the front desk, and I said, whatever your employees park, you know, like the front desk clerks and so forth. And they said, oh, well, they buy a seasonal pass and they just park along the road. And they're probably there for their 8-hour shift, so the car's there for 8 hours. And I'm not saying, I know there's a lot of VRBOs down there, but I don't know how you can monitor it, I don't know. But I was suggesting maybe we could put in 10 spots along that row, somewhere along that row, for Kennebunkport residents only. And he said, well, how do you monitor that? Well, when you make the little stickers that you put on the back of the car, you know, this year, I don't know, maybe they're blue. But for Kennebunkport resident, it would be a red one. And they put that on the back of the car, so it makes it easy for the cop to go along and look, oh yeah, that's a red sticker, they can park there and so forth. I just think that, you know, paying all these taxes in town, and I can't go to our local beach. And believe me, this summer is going to be impossible because all the people that can't get to the beach over in Kennebunk because of the storm and the sidewalk, let's go over to Goose Rocks. Let's pay $25 or $50 or $100 for a day pass and whatnot, and we'll park over there. And the locals, you know, I speak to local, well, we go before May and after September. Well, I happen to like to go to the beach during the summer. So it's just a suggestion. I don't know if they've ever thought about that, the selectmen making some designated spots for residents.
Well, I've run into the same situation. My
Oh.
family, every time my kids come, or my wife,
Yeah.
or my grandkids come and we want to go to the beach, I have to go and drop them off, or one of us has to go
Yeah.
and drop them off and go back. And I used to ride my bike, but I don't do that anymore. So we just drop people off. So we don't get a parking spot either. So I understand what you're talking about. I really do.
I just think, all the taxes that people pay in town, being a year-round resident, I can't even get a parking spot in my own beach.
I hear you,
Yeah.
yeah. We'll have to look, it's a difficult solution. The solution is difficult to come up with.
Yeah.
But maybe we can,
I mean, maybe, maybe not 10, maybe 6 spaces designated for.
something, yeah,
For local
Yeah.
residents only, put a sign there.
yeah. I hear you. I think we should talk about it.
Okay.
Where does that reside? Does it reside in the beach committee or the select board?
Select board.
Select board
makes the decision.
Select board are the parking people.
And the parking spaces are per the allotment through the beach use agreement? So that-
17201, whatever it is.
Yeah, so there's a fixed number.
Fixed number.
Okay.
Kevin?
Time limit on the parking spaces?
Why don't you go up here, please, so people at home could hear you.
Go ahead.
Well,
Well, a lot of,
I think.
a lot of places have time limits on parking spaces, and where that's supposed to be for multiple people using it, having someone park their car there for a 10-hour day,
I'm with you, but how would the CSOs be able to do that effectively and efficiently?
the same way they do it in big cities. They mark the tires as they go by, so they know which car's been sitting there for the longest.
I think that's illegal now.
I don't know.
So.
It was just an idea.
Yeah.
If it's not possible, then it's not
Yeah,
possible.
it's the mechanics that.
I mean, we could change it to hourly parking, but we would change our entire system, because no longer would people get permits. You would pay in a machine for parking by the hour. And so
Even the
York
residents.
does that.
Even the residents.
Well,
Because
you
the
know,
residents, how you gonna know how long they've been there? That's the thing.
you'd have to give them resident stickers, but what happens in York is people have numbered spots and they pay by the hour. So it's a different system.
Right.
If I can just,
So you've got to talk you can't talk from the seat.
I just wanted to make one more point I forgot to mention. That day when I went down there at 7:45 in the morning and I counted the percentage of cars and out of town and so forth. So I parked on a little side street because I couldn't get a parking spot. I said, I'm just going to walk on the beaches, see how many people are there at 7:45. There were 5 families on the entire beach. So you tell me where those cars are parked. I know where they're parking. There's a VRBO, and they have 5 cars at the VRBO, 2 at the house, and 3 along the street. It's just, 5 people on the beach, and all the spots are gone. So that was all I wanted to say. Thanks.
Thank you, thank you. Anybody else? Anybody out in TV land?
I don't know how you do it.
Okay, moving on. Consider the following renewal liquor license submitted by JPRE LLC, doing business at Roma Pizza located at 5 Union Street. Olivos LLC, doing business as Ultramar Restaurant located 77 Pier Road. The board has approved those, the staff has approved those, so.
Yep.
Motion.
I make a motion that we renew the liquor licenses for Roma Pizza and Ultramar Restaurant.
All those in favor?
Second, wait.
Oh, second, that's okay. Oh, I thought you had already done it.
Very good.
Okay, we're good. Okay, Alan?
Aye.
Right, okay, 5-0.
Thanks for being awake, Alan. That's
I'm here.
Good
I'm here
man.
for you.
Good man.
Okay, next we have the presentation of the proposed June 2024 ordinance changes with legal review. Remember at the last, when we had the workshop, we agreed that we would go to our attorney to get some legal language and correct, and some things corrected, and we've done that, and this is that review. Galen, you want to?
All right, good evening, Select Board. So we have in front of you some changes. As we discussed prior, we had the Growth Planning Committee looked over. You had a joint session with the Planning Board and Growth Planning to go over what LD 2003 is, what it will change. And then we had the draft language, we walked through that. And so after that, we sent that for review by the town solicitor. And so that's what's in front of you tonight. So we do have Aga Dixon, who is one of our town solicitors. And so I'm going to turn over the conversation to her. She's virtually, and she can go over those proposed changes that the attorney is recommending for you all to consider. Are you here with us, Aga?
I am. Can you hear me?
We can,
Yes.
Wonderful. Hi, everybody. It's nice to be with you all this evening.
Hello.
So as Galen mentioned, and as you are all aware, the legislature made some substantial changes to the land use laws of Maine when it adopted LD 2003 and made subsequent amendments to that law more recently. So what I have proposed, working in close concert with Galen, is a set of changes to your code of the town of Kennebunkport to bring you into compliance with that state law, as well as the rules that were promulgated by the Department of Economic and Community Development as mandated by the legislature. I'm happy to go through these line by line if you wish, or just provide you with a general overview of what is included here, whatever the board's preference.
What's the pleasure of the board? Overview?
Yeah, I've read through.
Yeah, I have too, yeah.
I have a couple questions, but I'll go to those specific. Let's do an
Oh,
overview.
okay, let's do
Then
an-
we could do specific
Is
questions.
that okay with you, Galen?
Yep, that's good.
All right, okay. Aga, is that okay? Just do an overview?
Okay, yeah, I'll keep it brief, and I'm happy to just take questions on any portion of this. But in short, the housing law has 4 different components that implicate municipalities. The first one that I want to touch on is the one that is not really being paid much attention to at this moment, but it is, I think, an important element of the housing law. And that is a mandate for municipalities to affirmatively further fair housing. And specifically as fair housing relates to regional and statewide housing production goals that DECD is charged with establishing. Just for your reference, DECD recently came out with a report with some statewide production goals, and my understanding is that the plan is to work with communities to establish more local goals going forward. So one of the changes that you'll see at the bottom of page 1 and top of page 2 is just a recognition that this is mandated by the law, and that the amendments brought forth are intended to affirmatively further fair housing. There's a lot to that phrase, and I'm happy to discuss it in greater detail if you're interested. But I think as a bare minimum, modifying your purpose statement to be consistent with that state law requirement is the way to go here.
And Aga, the reason for that is to help solidify any kind of court challenges in the future to our land use ordinance. Is that correct?
Yes, basically, I suspect that if there are any challenges, and hopefully there aren't, but if any come along in the future, there's a good chance that people will tack on a claim that the town didn't do enough to affirmatively further fair housing. And so we can, at the very least, point to this provision and say, well, we did actually modify our ordinances to comply with the law. As a separate matter, I will speak with staff about what the town may additionally need to do with this, to comply with this requirement. But for purposes of the upcoming town meeting, I would recommend that you include this in the purpose statement.
So this one, it doesn't bring in any other, we've gone through the 3 scenarios, or for this specific thing, 2 of the 3. It doesn't bring anything other mandates in, it's just an just how you stated.
Yeah, this was in a state statutory requirement, and so we're just baking it into our, yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. So the other three provisions are ones that you're quite familiar with, I'm sure. One, establishes a right to accessory dwelling units. Another provision establishes density bonuses for affordable housing developments. And the third one effectively prohibits zoning that limits residential dwellings to, or limits, residential zoning to a single-family dwelling unit per lot. I don't believe that, in looking at your code, you don't have that provision anyway, so we don't really have to worry about incorporating anything related to that third requirement, with the exception of the water and subsurface wastewater standards, which I will flag for you in just a moment. As you go through the document, you will see that the first major changes are to the definitions. What I strongly recommend is that you adopt pretty much verbatim the definitions that DECD has incorporated into its rule. And that's what I've attempted to do here. I've added some definitions that were not included in a prior draft because they are central to these potability and wastewater verification requirements. So if you look on page 3, you will see new definitions for centrally managed water system, comparable sewer system, and so forth, and also potability. The next major change I suggested was to really express specifically where affordable housing, in which zoning district affordable housing is allowed. A common misunderstanding of the statute is that affordable housing can only occur in a multiplex, like an apartment complex. But in fact, if you read the statute as well as the DECD rules, I believe that there is room in that interpretation to accommodate different forms of affordable housing, including, a subdivision of single-family homes or duplexes or apartment complexes or any combination of those things. And so identifying affordable housing as a conditional use subject to site plan review, just like you identify multifamily multiplexes, gets at the requirements of the law and clarifies that it is not necessarily a multiplex.
So can we hold there for a quick second? So when you did the, Galen, when you did the Venn diagram for us, and when I was reading through this, I didn't think it changed at all.
No, this is, and the ones that are listed in here, the different zones, they're the ones that currently allow for multiplexes in those zones.
Okay.
Yep.
But that's where I got confused, because it's not just, when I was just listening, it's not just the multiplexes. So there's nothing that changed.
They can be other type, they don't have to be multiplexes. They can be single family,
yes,
they can be two family.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
Just
But ours,
stating that.
Right,
yeah, but our
right.
zoning, your Venn diagram and the zones that we said yes, no are all.
Yep, that's the same. So basically, the state law is saying that anywhere in your zoning, any of those zones that allow for multiplexes, you have to give the bonus to affordable housing.
But
Yep.
it does not have to be a multiplex.
But it doesn't, but the affordable housing development doesn't have to be multiplex.
Which was our understanding
Yep.
anyways. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And you're still allowed to restrict the locations of affordable housing to those zones where you allow multiplexes. So the next couple of sections are, as you know, there are standards within the housing law that deal with accessory dwelling units, which in your case are known as accessory apartments. So I've incorporated those into section 240-7.1, as well as standards for affordable housing, which are now incorporated into section 240-7.15. And both of those sections are cross-reference potability standards. And the,
Sorry, thank you. Yeah, I have a question. Maybe I missed it, but would it be, could it be important to just make it clear that an ADU is, in our terms, an accessory apartment? Just so there's no confusion on that?
yes.
We did that.
Maybe we've done that and I missed it.
It's in the definition section.
Excellent,
Yep.
thank you. Perfect.
Got it.
And that permeates through the rest of our ordinance, right?
Yep.
Yep.
Great catch, and absolutely, there's no reason to change your local nomenclature. We just added a definition that says accessory dwelling unit, C, accessory apartment.
Good.
I do want to draw your attention to the last section, last brand-new section here, which is the sanitation and potability provisions that I've added to section 240-611. Subsection C is very wordy. I apologize for that, but essentially DECD in its rule chapter identified, about a page and a half worth of wastewater and potability verification requirements for any unit within an affordable housing development, any accessory dwelling unit or accessory apartment, as well as any extra dwelling unit above and beyond the first dwelling unit that is developed on a property. And indeed, it might be applicable to that first single-family dwelling that is built on a lot. So this section, which is in the middle of page 5, is really intended to be a cross-reference to the DECD rule chapter. For reasons we can get into if you wish, I suspect that rule may change in the near term or in the future. And so instead of copying all of those potability standards and wastewater standards into your ordinance, I simply opted to put in a cross-reference because I'm being given the impression that those rules may be modified in the future. And that would avoid having you have to come back and modify your ordinance to remain in compliance. So that's sort of a, quick and dirty overview of what is in here. I'm
So
happy to take.
On that one, I got a quick one on that one.
Yep.
Always. How does this relate? So we spent a lot of time on this one. So, and we talked a lot about, what do I want to say? I'm missing my word. Not how we process it, but how do we, the planning board and everyone, and how do we actually monitor it and,
The verification piece.
the verification, thank you. I was missing the word. So Galen, is that something that the way that it is, is this actually operational for our boards and our very small
Right,
town?
so these standards that we were just referencing, that is related to the wastewater disposal and the potable water on site, and that's more of a code enforcement when they review building permit applications and issue those permits. That's where that gets all reviewed.
Okay.
Yep.
You can certainly consider it as part of a planning board review for a larger project like an affordable housing development, and condition approval on those verification requirements. But I think, what the statute contemplates is that the written verification will be given to the town prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy. But that said, nothing prohibits the planning board or the CEO from conditioning permits to comply with these requirements, and there may be good reason to do that.
And we don't issue CFOs until they have adequate wastewater and water on site.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
And
Okay.
with that CFO, they can't sell the property. So that's a huge barrier for a lot of folks. They really want that CFO.
Say that again?
The certificate of occupancy?
No,
they
no,
want-
but you said.
In order for them to.
Oh, they can't
to sell
close the
it.
sale.
Yep, right,
Okay,
they need
yeah,
that.
yeah, okay, yep.
John, did you have a question?
Yeah, I've got a question on page 7, where we're talking about the affordable housing. Section E is prohibiting short-term rental for, if I read it correctly, for those units that are not I guess it's envisioning a mixed development where a certain portion is affordable housing, the other portion's market housing.
Yep.
And yet we are prohibiting short-term rental in that portion which is market value homes.
No.
Is that correct?
Yes.
And is that by, is there reasons for that other than a thought it would be wise to do for reasons outside of the regulatory requirements?
So we believe that was the town policy was to preserve our local housing stock for affordable housing, for people who are workforce housing, to keep those units.
I think
Yeah.
absolutely for
Yeah.
any, what I'm envisioning is a development that went in where in order to have 50% of it be affordable, the developer had to sell 50% at market value.
Yep.
And that's what made it work. But now I'm seeing, you're telling those people that paid market value, you can't short-term rent.
No.
And you're,
Wait,
is that what that's, but if that's what that's saying, I have a little concern because it's going to make those less attractive, maybe not able to get those sold to make that dynamic work. So
Yeah, that's exactly.
that's my concern. And maybe I'm misreading it.
You are not misreading it. That was the intent, and that was based on a recommendation that I made to Galen. I think the original version of the draft only restricted short-term rentals on the affordable units within a
Exactly.
housing development. I'm concerned about that because, well, we can look into it and see if there are legal issues with it. My gut instinct, without looking into it in great detail, is that it could result in some discriminatory practices between the market rate units, which
Interesting.
But
and
then-
the folks who are moving into less affordable housing who don't have access to that potential income stream.
But can I
I'm-
make,
Yeah,
can
but
I
there's-
make
I'm
the
not
same
sure if it's
argument,
a
though?
legal
Can I
issue.
make the same argument if I bought a house literally next door in another housing unit that wasn't deemed affordable, but I was a market-based person there, and now I can do, so
You
I
can-
think when we're,
You can make that argument, but they didn't take advantage of the density bonus that you're getting with this development. So they're getting
And
a lot more
also-
units
Yeah.
but as
compared
a,
to.
Well, you
but
know,
I'm
and I
looking at
paid
it not
market
as
value
a
for the
developer,
unit.
I'm looking at it as the market value payer.
I see the discrimination angle, and I think we ought to have that resolved before we change. I mean, it's clear to me that it is, but I can see it's not with some of the others, so I think we really ought to have that one looked at and put to bed before we change it.
I want to break a pick over it, but it just.
No, it's okay,
seems to me
John.
that you're possibly preventing those units from selling and making something possible, but, and just one other thought, there might be in B2 above, there might be a typo in that last sentence, because it isn't clear to me when I read it. Could you just read that out loud, that last sentence, see if that makes sense?
I will. This is pure legalese, and I apologize for that. Before I do that, I do want to mention that there is a slight distinction between affordable housing through the lens of the housing law, which is that the legislature expressly said that the municipality may regulate short-term rentals as a part of implementing the fair housing mandate as well as the other provisions of LD 2003. So just, in terms of being concerned about treating affordable housing differently from other kinds of developments, I'm less concerned about that from a legal perspective.
Yeah, but this is not an affordable, it's not an affordable unit. It's a market unit that is
within.
incorporated in an affordable community. So is it
Right.
speaking to the community or to the unit when it made that statement?
Yeah.
So that's where I think we're, to Mike's point, and I actually want to break a pick over this, because I think I see it from the other side of the coin, that if I'm market-based and I happen to go in, which we want people to go into affordable housing because we want that mixture of
make it
people.
work, right.
And then to make that work for me, maybe I'm 5 or 7 years away from retirement and I'm going to retire here, but I want to rent that out during the high rate of the short-term rental season here. And so, because I'm one street over, I'm in a different development, I'm market-based. So I find it the opposite side. I feel like we're discriminating against market-based people here. I see the point on both sides, but my problem is, I feel, you know, if we circumvent market-based people here, that equally so, we can get, you know, somebody just saying discrimination against that side. I understand where Mike is, I understand, but I also think that there's two sides here, you know?
I know that there are some communities or some building areas where they have neighborhood rules and regulations. You know, sometimes it's no dogs, sometimes it's no children.
Yeah.
You know, and things like that. So if there was a
Yeah.
homeowners association, yeah.
And said
And
no
if there's
short-term
something like
rentals.
that, if somebody buys one of those homes, that market value home, maybe there's a
It's a covenant.
clause
It's a covenant of something.
in there
So would
says
that have
Yeah,
to
but
be?
you
you
don't
are
put
not
that in
allowed
here.
to.
Oh, that's fine if they want to do that for a community, but I don't see putting it into the document. But anyway,
That was just a thought.
Well, I think to build on what Sheila said, so you would then, would we
Under
not,
contract,
would we
put that
not
in
put
the
it in,
contract.
would we not put it in our subdivision ordinances saying that when it is so I guess maybe that's what this does.
that's what this does.
That's what this does. So it says that nothing can be short-term rental and these things, yeah.
Even if it's an affordable, a market unit.
Yeah.
I will mention that this is totally optional, so if it leaves you feeling uncertain, you know, like I said, I can do a little bit more legal research on it, but if, as a policy matter, you're not comfortable with this concept, I would encourage you to simply eliminate that provision altogether.
Yep.
As well as the provision on the top of page 1, which is really a cross-reference to your short-term rental section, and deal with STRs more holistically without regard to whether or not they're in an affordable housing, outside of an affordable housing. Just let the short-term rental rules dictate how you treat STRs. So going back to your question about that legally wordy
Oh, no,
paragraph.
yeah, just B2, the very last, the last line, it says enforceable by the town, a third party acceptable to the planning board.
You're right, there is an "and" missing there.
There
So
you
the-
go, got
by
it.
the town
I didn't know
and
where to
authority
put, great.
acceptable to the board.
And
Thank you
or
for
an
the,
or, is it an or an and?
you wanted both. You would definitely want both the town to be able to enforce it as
By
well
the
as.
town or a third party, except, okay, good, well, you know how it goes, you know the words. Good, thanks.
Thank you for that catch. That should be an "and."
Got it.
Yeah.
Cool.
So this is the last meeting that we're gonna review this language, because at the next meeting, we're gonna bring you the order, because you have to do it 60 days prior
Right.
for the language. So certainly, we can have the attorney review that question about whether it's gonna prohibit short-term rentals for even the market units in an affordable housing development. But we need a decision from you which way to go.
Make a recommendation.
I see a downside in putting this, and I don't see a huge upside in putting it, unless it would lead to legal discrimination argument. So if it would do that, then I'd leave it in. If it wouldn't do that, in the attorney's opinion, I'd like to see you take it out.
Yeah.
That's my stand.
Galen, do you have any other thoughts on that before they?
Nope.
Alan, do you have any thoughts?
Coward. Hey, no taunting, Galen.
I gave my policy recommendation. That's,
Yeah, I know.
that's all I can do.
I know.
Yep.
So you like it, you think it's-
I am concerned with, I know, I understand the marketability concern, but they're taking advantage of a bonus in your land use standards that would not normally be available
Who is
to
they?
But that's.
any
the
developer.
developer.
Any
Yeah.
developer.
The
Yep.
developer is.
Right.
So what we're looking at it from, the buyer, from the owner's
Right.
standpoint. And I feel that we have an issue with the owner. And as we've always said, we have, high cost of housing, and when we're gonna create these affordable housing structures, we're gonna have that dichotomy in this development. And so we're going to have to give the onus, we're gonna have to give as much as we can to the market base to help the developer make up and get that dollar amount back so that they can get as many, we've got to get the pie as big as possible for that developer. And I think if we start truncating what this future buyer can get in terms of, payback and what type of people can come in, because I need to maybe rent it out for 5 years until I can move in there, whatever it is.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we leave it in.
We're both arguing to take it out, but you want to make.
I know, I'm making somebody's gonna make a motion.
That's good.
Oh, we're gonna be here all night, and we're not gonna get it done. Okay, there's a second. Okay, so now we vote. Alan?
Aye.
You want it in or out, Alan?
Oh, I thought you were, I want it in.
Okay,
In it is. That's quick.
okay, 3-2, okay.
You must be getting tired.
No,
I'm kidding.
no, I mean,
You
you
did it.
we would be, I think,
I'm pulling your leg. I totally understand.
one way or the other.
I understand.
Hey, stop hiding
The only other provision I wanted to mention to you all, because I know it was discussed in other meetings, is about residential parking standards. So you'll see that in there on page 5. So with the 2 parking spaces for every 3 units,
Yeah.
the state, according to Aga, she mentioned that the state is allowing us that we can round up. So that is going to be in there as a provision. And then we can also require, as part of the site plan review process, the planning board, on a case-by-case basis, they can require on-street parking in addition on the private way.
Right.
So hopefully that's alleviating the
Yeah, that was
concerns
it.
of.
Yeah,
I think
that's
that's
good.
wonderful.
Yep.
I meant
That
to
was.
mention
Yep.
that.
So,
It's really
yeah, on the
Yeah.
private way, just to,
the public.
is
Public
It's
road, yeah.
it's a private way.
private way.
We
no,
didn't
it's in
adopt the
It's in
street.
the development,
Yep.
so it's
Yeah.
off
Yep.
the town streets.
Yeah, but you still can mandate that they provide. They
The
can't-
planning
they-
board-
They gotta make it wide enough
Yep.
to allow it, is the point, so it's.
On a
it's
case-by-case
cost driver.
basis by the planning
Yeah,
board. Yep,
That's cool.
okay. Yep.
Okay. Other than that, are we okay?
You're good. I think so, yeah. It's
We're ready to go.
a lot of work, wonderful job,
Thank you.
actually, a lot of
Okay.
work.
Thank you. It's complicated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's complicated. And I'm sure somewhere along the way, there'll be some changes, somewhere along the way. So,
Your land
Okay.
use ordinance is a
Good.
living, breathing document, so that's,
Yep.
There you go.
yep.
so, okay, moving on to so we got what we need there.
Yeah, but we have floodplain.
Yeah, floodplain.
Yep,
That's what I'm getting to right
absolutely.
now.
Everybody's favorite.
So we want to get to the floodplain ordinance amendment.
Yep. So you have that draft language
Yep.
in front of you. You'll notice that there is a highlighted section that stipulates the adoption date of the floodplain maps, that we have to inject that language when we
When we
do
get
get the
it, right?
floodplain maps.
Yeah.
Aga, I have not received them yet, so I'm waiting for that. So you see that highlighted section, but everything else is still part of the model ordinance. Is there anything else you'd like to add, Aga?
I do want to just ask the select board whether you have received any notifications from FEMA in the past week or so. I did get notice that one of our communities had their LOMR approved, and the letter, I believe, was sent to the chair of the select board, who I believe maybe thought it was spam and got rid of it, and we didn't receive, the lawyer didn't receive a copy of it. So the good news in that case was that their LOMR was approved. We just didn't know about it. So check your spam folder, and if you see an email from FEMA or AECom, which is the FEMA consulting firm that processes these applications, please forward that to Galen and myself, or just to Galen, and he'll send it over to me. I will check in with FEMA tomorrow to see where things stand with your community approval, but I expect that if it hasn't happened already, it will happen very soon.
Good.
All right,
Okay, that's it.
all right. Good. So we don't need a motion on that. Okay, thank you, Galen. We'll get to the right place.
Thank you, Aga.
Thank you, everybody. Unless you need me for the rest of your meeting, I will log off.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
night,
Authorize
take-
the acceptance of a wastewater plant backup generator bid.
So as you may recall, back in 2021, we replaced the emergency backup generator at the plant. So on February 9th, we put the old one out to bid. Bids were due on March 6th. We had a total of 2 bidders. One was a gentleman out of Pittsfield, New Hampshire. The other was Abbott Equipment Sales out of Lebanon, Maine. The high bidder was Abbott Equipment Sales, $8,799.99. Based on the bid amount, I would recommend accepting the bid from Abbott Equipment.
Second.
That's a great bid. That's an excellent bid for that piece of equipment.
I seconded.
I'll entertain a motion.
I seconded it, and then
Okay.
I'm voting. All those in favor?
I was looking for I had a question, but I think it's been answered. So, wasn't one I'm trying to get to it here. Wasn't one bid 4,000?
Yeah, it was.
Yes.
The other,
Yeah.
what's the why are we taking the higher one?
Because this is a sale.
We're selling it.
It's a
Okay.
sale.
That's
Yeah.
such a, all right, I'm with you.
So, and just as a follow-up to this.
I thought we were buying.
Yeah, me.
Oh, no,
When I first
So
looked
I'm
at
reading it.
When I first looked at it, I
That's
said,
that's what I thought we were buying, a new generator. I
No.
said, "Well, that's a bargain."
No, and just to go along with this, there's a limited market for this, because this generator can't be resold for any purposes, such as primary power. So, in years past, before all the emissions regulations went into effect, it would have been the perfect piece of equipment for somebody running a rock crusher at a gravel pit. But federal law prohibits this being used as primary source. So really the only market value to this is somebody that wants the engine. The engine's highly desirable for
I just misread it, Chris.
over-the-road trucks. So
is that because of pollution, or what is the, is that?
yep, it's the new emissions laws. So currently, I think we're in Tier 3, soon to be in Tier 4. This doesn't meet even Tier 1, so,
I just want to
We
go on
were
record.
lucky to get a bid like that.
yep.
Okay.
Okay.
Done.
We voted.
We voted.
We voted,
Did we
right?
vote? Yeah,
Yeah, we did.
yeah, we're good. More public works.
Authorize the acceptance of the Dock Square sidewalk bid.
So for the current fiscal year, we had budgeted $25,000 to replace a section of sidewalk adjacent to Compliments. So from the intersection of Ocean Avenue back to the coffee shop, because a lot of that has heaved up and moved around. We have some trip hazards down there. So we had budgeted $25,000 to replace that. I did solicit bids from 3 contractors, George Burns Sons Terrapin Landscaping and Dan Veman Landscaping. Only 2 were willing to bid. George Burns Sons was the low bidder, $27,750. He did let us know that he's able to mobilize and complete that work prior to Memorial Day. So I would say that based on timing and based on price, I would recommend accepting the bid from George Burns Sons. There is, I'm aware that the price came in about $2,750 over what we budgeted. However, we were under budget on the Pearl Street sidewalk, so there's still adequate funding there to take care of this project, so.
I move we accept the bid from George Birds and Son for $27,750 for the work on the Dock Square sidewalk.
Second.
Okay? All those in favor?
Second.
Aye. You okay, Alan?
Yep.
Aye.
All right, good, 5-0. The next one is the authorize the annual Animal Welfare Society shelter agreement to be in effect from July 1, 24 through June 30th, 2025. I gotta get on with that.
I have no idea what this is, but I guess it's a good thing.
I read it. It's just we pay money for,
Lost it again.
we just pay money for them to be able to drop off animals
Can I have pictures?
that they can't find the owners for.
Good.
And then,
And they do a great job.
yeah,
Yep, it's for the dog.
yeah. Well, cats too.
Oh.
Yeah,
So,
I'm looking,
taking a motion?
but I wanted to tell people what it was, so,
So it,
that's all. Hold on. So the cost for the working with the Animal Welfare League is $5,298.34 for the year, broken into 4 payments. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved,
Yeah, okay.
so moved.
Okay, second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? Okay.
Support.
Aye.
Alan, you okay? All right. Accept an anonymous donation of $80,000 to purchase a trash pump and a message board to aid in storm response. That should be you.
I know, I was very excited. I read this and I'm like, God, I think this is great. So I would like to make a motion to accept a $80,000 donation from one of our citizens in gratitude for the specific instructions to purchase a trash pump
And message board.
and message board for future storms.
And it was
Second.
seconded by Sheila. All those in favor? Aye.
Absolutely.
Alan?
Aye.
All right, 5-0. Other business, Mary Beth?
No, none tonight, thank you.
Yes, unfortunately, but I'm going to do it
Oh,
quickly.
you're gonna do it? Yeah,
Yeah,
that's right.
if I may.
Sure, sure. Gonna talk about
He's been out
Goose Rock
flying.
Beach.
I've got to put on my Kennebunkport Conservation Trust hat. The trust, or the Goose Rock Beach, as you know, was quite severely impacted by the January storms. And the trust has decided to take out a permit by rule and replenish the section of dunes that covers their trust property. You can see on the screen. It starts basically at Broadway. The trust lots extend down to just past Edgewood. There are 2. Let's go to the next slide. Just get a little closer. There are 2 lots. One is a private lot by the Roberts family. You see that in the yellow. And then the town has a lot on the southwest side. And then the town has the 3 right-of-ways. The one at Broadway, the one at Proctor, and the one at Edgewood. So the next slide, please. So what I've been doing for the trust over the past couple years is flying a drone to map the dunes just in case that we got to where we got in January. So this is a map of the dunes. As you'll see, the date is always shown down in the lower right. This was taken on the 14th of September in '23. So this is obviously pre-storm. Draw your attention to the 3 pathways. The one up at Broadway, the long, narrow path that comes in, the one in the center of that yellow area, which is the project area, is the one off of Proctor. And then the one down at Edgewood is the shortest. That's also, thanks, David. That's also our ADA compliant lot. So that has the parking spaces, the handicap spaces on each side, and there's a mat that allows for ease access onto the beach. So this is the scene before the storm. The next slide. What I have done here is to map out the edge, what I'd call the edge of the dune in purple. And then in orange is the edge of the heavily vegetated dune. And again, this is pre-storm. And what you have in that front edge, the purple to orange transition, it maybe rises a foot, maybe a foot and a half, and it has the grasses starting to come in. This is the area where the windblown sand catches, the windblown sand is caught by the vegetation. This is the building process that normally takes place, an important process in how these dunes are formed. Okay, the next slide is where we are in today. This is the damage that was done. If you toggle back, Dave, just a little bit, can you toggle back between those 2? Yeah. So you'll see the lines have not moved, and you can see the amount of dune that was lost. But between the purple and the orange in this post-storm, there's a lot of root system that is still there. So if you take the next slide, please. This blue area is what the trust is proposing to restore. And you can see that it is a little bit seaward of the heavy veg line, but it's well shoreward of that purple extent. And again, that's because those roots, we hope, are still there to a large extent and will come back. So the dune area that the trust is proposing to replace is in that blue polygon. Next slide. So that's it. Okay, the next slide, please. The way they're going to do it is they are going to scrape sand. This, again, is by the permit by rule. That was applied for a week ago Friday. The 14 days will be up a week this Friday.
Another week, yeah.
And then, so what we'll do is we'll use a bulldozer. We'll move the sand from that mid-tide line, which is what you see, the yellow line on the bottom. And those areas are calculated to say how much sand at a 6-inch depth you'd have to move to be able to restore that blue. And you'll notice that they're going to pick up the blade and not scrape up where that grass roots are. So that's the plan. The next slide, try to get you through this. So now we're back at the blue area. The dashed black line is the ridge line. So what we're planning to do is to to fill up the dune shoreward of that black line at the 3+ foot height of the dune, and then seaward of the black line, slope it down. So we have a sloping face that comes down. That helps with the wind, to be able to trap the wind. It also helps when the storms and the high tides do get up there. They're not breaking against a cliff. They're riding up the sand, and it gives it its best chance to survive another storm. So if we take a next slide, hopefully this is I'm going to draw a cross-section. So we're going to do a cross-section on that purple line that's there. Next slide, please. So that's kind of what that dune will look like. Very schematic, but so it's flat landward of the dashed line. The dashed line is B on the cross section. That's a vertical cross section, and then the slope dune will come down towards the ocean. So the next slide. This is you noticed. You can see it here in the blue. You see the blue tongues on the 2 right-of-ways at Proctor, then up at Broadway. You can see how what we saw first in that September scene, those long, narrow paths, made an excellent spot for the water to come up and just flush out the sand. And Peter Slavinsky at the Maine Geologic has recommended that we not have those gashes. That the recommendation is to try to do it with a zigzag if you can, or close it up entirely with sand. The zigzag would need a different permit. We couldn't do that in this time frame, and closing it up makes the most sense. So what the trust is planning to do, and again at the geologic suggestion, is to, at Broadway and at Proctor, to have that be a solid wall of sand, and there'll be a mat that will go over the sand and allow people to walk down onto the beach. So it's the preferred way without having a walkway, an actual physical structure. And the issue with that is that also needs a special permit, and we don't have the time to do it. So this hopefully will be temporary, because my vision would be to see a more permanent structure rather than a mat. But the mat would provide access. They use it up and down the coast. There would be you'd have stairs that would come up, and then the mat would fall over the dune. At Edgewood, we still need the ADA compliant there, so that area will be at grade. Certainly something in the future that when we can have the permits in place to be able to raise a proper platform over, we could look at trying to close that as well.
So John, just to clarify, so on Broadway and Proctor, for this scraping.
Yes.
At those entrances, we'll do the grass mats, but when you come off the road, you're gonna walk up to the grass mats on
Yes.
sand, or you're
No.
gonna do
There'll be,
steps?
there'll be steps. There'll be a wood structure of some sort that'll be, it's relatively temporary, because again, permanent, more than 6 months needs a permanent structure.
Okay, so we
rule.
can do that now?
Yes.
Without a permit?
Yes,
And it's gonna be a very small area, so it doesn't impact,
the parking, that's
Parking.
great. Yes, it will not take a parking space. If you're doing an ADA, it's gonna take a parking space, and it's gotta be a ramp.
okay,
And that's the problem with why we just can't do it now at Edgewood.
Okay, and then our goal would be to put these out, and then we would take them up in the winter.
Yeah.
And we would then put a boulder back at
No,
these
there's nothing,
entrances?
no boulder has to be put. It's got solid sand in front of it. So we'll probably fill that in with, well, we'll do what makes the most sense
At
to
that time.
secure that.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay,
so that'd be the plan.
all right, good.
So this is a Conservation Trust project.
Yeah, when I say "we," good point. Every "we" you heard was Conservation Trust had. This is
Right.
not the town doing this.
But this is, we're discussing it with you as well to keep you updated, but also these are town right-of-ways. And so that is your jurisdiction, and John will put his other hat on, to, we want to make sure that you guys are in alignment with us, basically creating a sand barrier at those right-of-ways. We're still going to work on access, but it will be, decisions will be made in the field about the best way to accomplish that.
The best way to do the access steps.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
And that's the town.
That is the town.
That is the town.
Got it.
Okay, we good?
I'm good.
Good. Thanks, John.
Alan, did you have any questions?
No, I'm fine with it.
Anything else, John?
No, that's it.
Sheila? I have nothing.
I have a lot.
Okay.
So, first up, we're going to have Eric LaBelle give you an update on the pump station project, and either Eric or Chris is going to give us an update on the Pier Road Causeway.
I'm doing both, yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for having me. I'll be brief. So the pump station projects, they probably look like they've been going on for quite a while, and they have been going on for quite a while, but actually 2 of those pump stations are substantially complete. Right now, a lot of the work that needs to be done is really just grading, paving, and fencing that needs to go in. So it's really the pretty work, for lack of better terms. So Wells District is basically complete as it's running as a new pump station. Patty Creek is also running as a new pump station. We're doing just, yes, the restoring work right now, so we're just really kind of like paving the road, the last thing that you do. So we're just at that point right now. We're working on laying out fencing and paving right now, so that should be getting wrapped up pretty quickly. Cape Porpoise, that's taken a while. The rock was very hard, very deep project, and quite frankly, we're still running into some challenges right now. However, the wet well is in. Our deepest point is in at that location. We're now working on the what's called the doghouse manhole, where we intercept the flow to send it to the new wet well, and then we'll put in a valve vault, and so that should be going. And those are not as deep, and they've already been that's been excavated, if you will, already. So I expect that project to be really substantially completed in June. So all 3 projects will be looking very different in the next 2 months. So hopefully people don't lose hope. We are making progress on those projects. So
A lot of work.
What was the percentage cost impact of the issues we had at Cape Porpoise?
it's not any cost impact to us, though. No. So effectively those projects were built to be built as is. We pay for the rock excavation. That is a unit item that we pay for. So we will have to pay for that. We've been doing okay with those numbers. So as a matter of fact, I think we did a small change order to actually move some of that money towards dewatering. So of the sludge.
Hey, since we're talking about pump stations,
Yes.
whatever happened to what was the final result of how we fixed the one down at Goose Rocks Beach by General Store?
So we did have an insurance claim on that because some of the motors went underwater in the actual dry side of the wet well. And we lost power there. We had an issue with the transfer switch. So actually, when we lost power, the transfer switch, there was a mechanism that that broke effectively in the transfer switch, which meant the generator did not kick on. So we found ourselves in a situation where we hired a couple of trucks, started hauling out. We've since replaced one motor. We're in the process of replacing the second one. We're just waiting for the second motor to come in.
And then just with the last storms that we had, especially the first big storm, is that where that pump station resides and with Rachel Carlson with the marsh right behind it?
Yep.
Is that pump station at a concern or issue with potential flooding, or are we somehow?
That particular pump station did not flood. I would tell you that the water got up probably within a foot of our dry side, if you will. So that small parking area next to it, water got to that location.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're certainly seeing higher sea level rise. These are items we'll have to address as we go forward.
Okay.
But
Yep.
you had a foot, you still had a foot there.
Yeah, water got into that road right there. That was yeah.
But that's
Yep.
actually more than I thought it would have been, so that's.
Yeah. The southeasterlies are kicking our butt this year. So, yeah. And on the Pier Road project, that's going well. That is actually going will also be substantially complete in June, believe it or not. So, two very different projects. That one's going well. Right now, we've got the eastern wall, at least the base blocks have been put in. We've got a portion of the parapet walls already put up now. If you've gone down there, I think, Mike, you had a chance to go down there, and see that those went in well. We set concrete this afternoon, and so they built about one of those wall segments per day. So they're going to keep working down on the east side on there. Next week, you can expect them to start working on the western wall, so you're going to see traffic shift over to the opposite side, and they'll establish a lane in that location. So we feel that there's enough room there, at least for a 13-foot lane to be able to get through there with traffic control. So they're going to be starting to work on the west side.
Eric, how high up is the road bed going to be within that wall?
So if you see the base block, you can expect you'll be up an additional 3 feet.
3 feet from that?
Yeah.
So it's going to be pretty much the whole, not the whole way.
Well, probably it's about midway up those
yeah,
parapet
okay.
walls. Yeah,
Yeah, and this guardrail on top, right?
that's correct, yes,
Yeah,
yep.
okay.
There'll be a DOT certified guardrail, yeah.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
So that's going well, so.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
I think that just to talk about the Pier Road Causeway project, there's been some confusion. We've heard from some people this past week about the thought that the kayak launch was going to close permanently. So the kayak launch is closed during construction. The plan is to open it back up again. As you'll remember, our new agreement requires that we limit commercial activity there. And so we will have bollards up, but it will be carry in, carry out, and it should be open for this summer.
Yeah, one of the bollards will be removable in the center, but is planned to be locked.
Okay, great, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else?
Yep, so I just want to make sure everyone is aware, I know we discussed it at our budget meeting, but the town was awarded a $50,000 grant to begin design on the head of the harbor end of Pier Road. So we have not received that DOT agreement yet. We'll need to verify that and authorize it before we begin spending money. This week, we also heard from Senator Collins' office that the federal government approved $750,000 in funding for dredging the Kennebunk River. So that's both the testing and permitting process for that. They're waiting for the president to sign off on that bill. And that will be a couple of years project. That doesn't happen immediately as they go through that permitting process.
How often do we dredge the river?
Well, the last time we dredged, I was a new manager here.
Yeah, so 10 years ago.
Since I've been here, yeah.
The last item is the York County budget. So the budget committee is getting ready, and the York County process for membership will be on Wednesday, April 10th. Elected officials are required to come to vote. We have for our district 2 openings, one's elected and one is a public position. So we're looking for people who would be interested in serving on the York County Budget Committee, and that would require someone from Kennebunkport to go vote for them.
When you say it's elected in public, could you say more what that means?
Yep, so elected position means you have to be an elected member within that community, within that district. So it would have to be a select board member. A public member can be anyone in that community. That's it.
Thank you.
Town warrant, authorized town warrant?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Alan?
Aye.
Second.
Motion
you
to
hear me?
adjourn, yes.
Can you
second.
hear me?
Yeah, we got you.
Oh, a motion to adjourn, you okay with that? Alan?
Aye.
Good night.
I'm going to bed now.
Good night, Al.
Oy.